All right, what's going on? Drive time. Thursday afternoon, 17 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock, scorching hot. Utah summer day outside, and as it is every single day, it is. Good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic, Porter Larson behind the glass today. Got some World Cup action going on right now. Switzerland is taking on Bosnia. That game is scoreless in the 58th minute. Tonight, it will be Mexico and South Korea. We've got Canada and Qatar, so World Cup action continues. It is the eve of the next U.S. men's national team match, which will come your way tomorrow at 1 o'clock Mountain Time up in Seattle, where the USA will battle Australia. Australia beat Turkey in their first group match play, and the U.S. took care of Paraguay 4-1. Christian Pulisic, as of now, is still training on his own, away from the team, hoping to be ready for tomorrow. So some World Cup action will keep you up to date on the game that's going on right now. The world of the PGA Tour is at Shinnecock. It is the U.S. Open, which is the hardest challenge for pro golfers. Right now, Sam Stevens, Wyndham Clark, 2 under par. Sam's in the clubhouse after carding a 68 today, and he is your leader. Wyndham Clark is through 2 holes, so he has 2 birdies in 2 holes. Ryder Cowan is an amateur golfer who's also 2 under, and that won't last. Rory McIlroy's in the clubhouse at 1 under, as is Ludwig Oberg, Brian Harmon, Max Gracerman, and Ben James. Utah's own Zach Blair is 1 under through 3, so we'll keep you up to date on the toughest test in golf, the U.S. Open, on the program today. All right, a couple of new pieces of legislation added to the bill that hopefully will save college athletics from our national leaders. It's going to go to Congress now. We'll kind of keep you up to date there and talk about some college football. An update with the Parker Kingston situation. The case has been dismissed as of now, but ultimately it looks like it will be able to be refiled. We'll talk about this. It's being misconstrued on social media as a entire dismissal. As I understand it, the woman who filed the complaint is not ready to testify. The state is not ready to bring their case, so they have dismissed it for now. I don't know what it means for Parker's potential of coming back and playing college football, but there's an update there, so we'll get that to you coming up in just a bit. The championship parade in Lower Manhattan for the New York Knicks was scenes, as the kids would say. A lot of chaos in New York City as the Knicks are celebrating their championship with the parade today. But a lot going on. Certainly some bad behavior, as one would expect in a championship parade in a city that has been waiting for this for a long, long time. So we'll get to some of that as well. Of course, the NBA draft, top of mind awareness. Coming up on Tuesday night, we're going to have some good coverage for you guys. Myself, Sean O'Connell, Richard Smith, Gordy Chiesa. There's been a change of venue because, well, I will let you know where we will be, and would love to have you guys come hang out with us coming up on Tuesday of next week, starting at 6 o'clock. A lot of conversation about the Walker Kessler situation with the Utah Jazz and the contract negotiations going on. We'll get you the latest there. So a ton to do. Busy show. Good to have you guys with us on a Thursday. We'll start things off with some college and pro football with our buddy Mike Yam. Mike also does some stuff with the NBA Network. We'll sprinkle in some off-season NBA stuff and some championship talk with Mike today. Our buddy Tony Parks, the voice of the Bees, will join us coming up at 3 o'clock today. I always enjoy my conversations with Tony. Brian Dunseth, my usual co-host on the television program known as Talkin' Real over on KUTV. But ultimately, Dunny is away covering the World Cup. And so we'll bring in Dunny today to talk a little big picture World Cup U.S. men's national team. RSL is back from their three-week break. They resumed training yesterday. So we'll do a little soccer with Dunny on the program today. So we got Mike Yam, we got Tony Parks, Brian Dunseth, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. Hello, happy Thursday, beautiful day, almost to the weekend. It's going to be a lovely weekend. Hopefully you have something fun planned. A happy early Father's Day to all of you fathers. And that guy, Porter Larson, producing the show today. What do you think you would shoot at Shinnecock Hills?
Probably like 78, 79.
Liar on the front.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you break 100?
No
chance.
I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
I haven't I've swung a golf club in the past year. I haven't played an actual round of golf since last summer, and the highest score I've ever shot at like what I would say challenging-ish course, one that doesn't just have like wide open fairways where you can, I like some of the courses around here because you can just hit it into the fairway next to you and still play it, right? Mm-hmm. It's just wide open, a lot of grass. The highest I've ever shot at like a challenging course, I think, is a 90, maybe an 89.
All right. Okay, fair enough.
So,
point of clarification, shout out my buddy Brandon. The U.S. Open is not a PGA Tour event. It's run and operated by the USGA.
Yes. Come on.
Well, you're my producer. Why do I have to rely on my golf snob friend for these text messages?
I guess it is part of like the PGA schedule, of course, but yes, it is an event put on and I would say operated by the United States Golf Association.
So for a guy that worked at a golf course for a long time, you don't seem to play a lot of golf.
Not anymore. I mean, I used to.
You hung it up?
There's a little snob effect here where growing up on those country clubs, I didn't just get to play golf. I got to play free golf on the best courses in the state, some of the best courses in the country with notable folk. And now it's like, hey,
you come play at Bonneville with Spence
with a guy you don't know because the tee times are all full.
So because it's not 2A with Michael Jordan, you don't want to play golf? Is that what you're telling me?
It's just not as enticing. And as I mentioned, it's a lot busier now, as we've talked about lately.
Everyone,
I'll play some golf. I promise you I'd come out for a round with you this year.
You won't. I've always invited you. You always say no. Everyone knows you're the snob on this radio show.
Yeah.
It's well established. Says
the guy who was wearing a matching seersucker shirt.
It's not This is not seersucker. That was yesterday.
Yesterday.
That's a comfortable outfit. You feel like you're wearing pajamas all day.
And let me be clear.
Yeah.
I've worn a matching seersucker outfit on a golf course before, but that's in my past.
I will not apologize for wearing seersucker. It's lovely.
You shouldn't.
It's a big embrace all day. It feels like you're wearing pajamas the entire day. It's lovely.
Have you ever worn a seersucker outfit on a yacht?
Let's get to opening tip. All right, our first guest will be Mike Am today. We'll do some football with Mike, maybe a little NBA as well. Keep you up to date on the U.S. Open, run by the USGA, not the PGA Tour. But before Mike stops by, courtesy of our friends at DraftKings, it's time now for your opening tip. Now listen up. World Cup going on. A goal for Bosnia was just called back. But I want to let you know that DraftKings Sports is live in all 50 states. Yes, that means you, Utah. The whole world is watching one tournament right now. Group stage chaos, knockout drama, stoppage time heartbreak. The DraftKings Sports app is now live in Utah. So whether you're catching the early kickoff before work or the late match at the bar, you're in on every minute, every match, every moment, all in one app. The world's biggest stage is in the palm of your hand. Now, listen up. New DraftKings customers, sign up with code ESPN 700 and spend $5 to get $200 in total rewards. Go get the free money. You should always do that. That's code ESPN 700 in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. Event trading offered by DraftKings Predictions, a CFTC-registered introducing broker. Trading involves risk of loss. Market availability varies. Eligibility restrictions apply. $50 every 7 days via click-to-claim issued in non-withdrawable prediction dollars that expire in 1 year. That ends on June the 28th. Terms are dkng.co/predictions promo. At some point, I'm going to go ahead and get that read better. But anyway, moving on. All right. Quick couple of thoughts here on where we find ourselves with the Utah Jazz strictly in the middle of the NBA rumor mill and news cycle. And I feel like some of the stuff is getting out of control. Walker Kessler took to Instagram. This is the deal now. We got to report things based off of Instagram posts. And it was a message of he wants to be here. Okay, what does that mean? Only Walker knows. Only his reps know. Only the Jazz know. And quite frankly, I find all of this more or less much ado about nothing. Restricted free agency is team friendly. It's not player friendly. That's why they don't love it. And that's why you only have an opportunity to be a restricted free agent once. And then after you sign an extension on your rookie contract, then you get to choose where you go after that. It is kind of an odd thing that in professional athletics and pro sports, these guys are literally the best in the world at what they do, and they're told where they have to live. Like, hey, congratulations, you're the best player in the league. Now you live in Washington. Way to go. You're an awesome offensive lineman. You live in Cleveland now. They earn the right to pick where they do what they do after 7 years of service to the team that drafted them. And that is by design, to give the team about a 7-year window to try to convince the player, like, you can win here, you can get paid here, and you could be happy here. Unfortunately for the Utah Jazz, as history indicates, it really, if we're honest, it hasn't been since John and Carl, where the Jazz drafted two unbelievably awesome basketball players that wanted to make Utah their home. Now, Darren was traded. A lot of people believe Darren was leaving anyway, but of course it got loose with Jerry Sloan. Kevin O'Connor decided, okay, we've seen enough. We're going to start a little bit of a reset. They trade Darren. Donovan was traded, but everybody that knows what was going on behind the scenes knew Donovan was leaving as soon as he possibly could. So Danny Ainge comes in, does his assessment, and says, we're going to get value for him before he leaves us for nothing, which is probably the right thing to do based off of how things have worked out, right? But other players, simply Gordon Hayward and others, have decided that they wanted to leave. Walker Kessler is not in that space. He doesn't have a choice. 5 years, $140 million is a very fair offer, in my opinion. I am strictly on the side of the Utah Jazz with this thing. And I like Walker. It would make him the highest paid center in the history of the NBA who has never made an all-star team. But the bottom line is this. If Walker and his reps don't believe that 5 years, $140 million is enough for them, good luck getting an offer sheet that is worth more than that. I don't see it happening. There are a few variables here. The Chicago Bulls have a lot of cap space. They could use a center. Do they bring some sort of contract offer to the table that's front-loaded with a lot of money that might make the Jazz think twice? The LA Lakers currently are talking to LeBron James about potentially bringing him back. But if the decision is, LeBron, thanks for everything, and good luck in your final chapter in Cleveland or wherever that is, the Lakers will have some cap space. It has long been known that the Lakers are keen on Walker Kessler, and the Lakers have not had a good center in a long, long time. And as they move into this whole Luka Doncic is now our centerpiece, Austin Reeves is the number 2. If they bring Austin Reeves back, they've got some work to do there. Walker Kessler would fit in really well with Luka Doncic. Most anybody would, but Walker's a center who can catch lobs and can rim roll and protect the rim. But the bottom line is this. All of the panic that is set in across Jazz fans on social, keep calm and carry on. It is okay. Walker does not have a choice. Walker could have a choice in 4 years. He will have a choice in 4 years, and then maybe let the panic set in. I do not see this scenario ending any other way than Walker Kessler back with the Utah Jazz. Finally, all the draft stuff. Everybody panicked about Darren Peterson. He's only meeting with Washington. Like Walker Kessler, this is not up to Darren Peterson. And if Washington takes A.J. DeBonsa at number 1, and Austin and Danny Ainge believe Darren Peterson is the right pick at number 2, welcome to the Utah Jazz, Darren Peterson. We got to keep calm here. Everything's going to be okay. The Jazz are in a really good spot. And they, in these two scenarios, have literally all the leverage. All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up next, Mike Yam will join us. Mike is our buddy from the old Pac-12 Network days. We'll do some college football with Mike, some NFL with Mike. And then maybe a little NBA, too. Mike does some work with NBA TV as well. Tony Parks will join us. Brian Dunseth will join us, and we'll keep you up to date on the U.S. Open and the World Cup. Busy Thursday show. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Looks like Sweden scored. Missed it. Oh, well. World Cup action going on right now. Billy Horschel has birdied the first 2 holes of the U.S. Open. We'll give you a scoreboard update in a bit. But actually, did I say Sweden? I meant Switzerland. Switzerland 1, Bosnia 0. Coming up at 4 o'clock, it's Canada and Qatar. 7 o'clock tonight, Mexico, South Korea. They're having a watch party, by the way, for this game out of Rio Tinto Stadium. A little birdie, cute old little birdie, miniature little birdie, informed me that maybe 8,000 people expected to show up at Rio Tinto tonight for the watch party. So shout out to that cute little bird. It's always good to have just the smallest little bird. Just give me a little piece of RSL news. 8,000 people.
You among them, I'm assuming.
For Mexico, South Korea?
Yeah.
Probably won't make it out to that one tonight.
I thought you were a man of the people.
Well, I am a man of the people, but I'm also a man that wants to hit golf balls before watching the game at home. I got to get some swings in before this weekend. I got a big weekend coming up.
Fair enough.
So, are you, I mean, I know that you have kind of come along a little bit with the soccer stuff. Does the World Cup move the needle for you at all?
Yes. It doesn't like jump over the U.S. Open. It doesn't jump over, of course, the finals that were going on as the World Cup got started. But yeah, I mean, it's something I definitely tune into. Now, the second that the domestic club gets eliminated, my attention on the World Cup definitely dies down a little bit. That's just part of the game, but it kind of depends on the storylines, who's involved, who's still contending. Of course, Leo Messi, Ronaldo, what they do, and just being a fan of like that level of greatness, I'll follow along there. But yeah, I'm dialed in.
Do you have a second? Obviously, we love America. Go America. If America's eliminated, if the U.S. is eliminated, do you have a second team that you would like to see hoist this cup?
It might be Argentina just because of that.
Yeah.
Watch Messi do the thing. What I would assume would be his World Cup swan song, and doing it while he's in the MLS. Right, a lot of people like European and top level international soccer fans love to talk about the MLS as like a pre-retirement party. So if Leo could show that he's still at this level in international soccer while being an MLS player, I think would be kind of cool.
I'm about to do something to you that Trey used to do to me that made me want to punch him in the face. Are you ready?
You're going to be a soccer snob to me?
No, you said the MLS, and it's just MLS.
But wasn't it the MLS is back tournament?
It was, which was a horribly misguided, so not to get, again, I'm turning into the person that I hated for years. Uh-huh. That's the name of the tournament, not the league.
Right.
The league is just MLS. It's just Major League Soccer. It's not the Major League Soccer.
I mean, that makes sense.
It does make sense.
The
but
NBA.
Another thing that MLS folk do that really piss me off, you know, MLS Cup, that's the final.
Right.
They call it Cup.
Just Cup.
Are you going to Cup? It sucks. It's cringy. It's so annoying.
And now we got the NBA Cup.
But we call it the NBA Cup. We don't say, are you going to Cup? Like, say, are you going to MLS Cup? Don't say, are you going to Cup?
I agree.
But Trey, for years, was on this thing where if he said the MLS, like, one of the things I used to do is write press releases. And Trey would grade them like he was my teacher in high school with, like, red marker crossed out and, like, things underlined. So it is MLS, not the MLS. But it is kind of nice to see Messi rep MLS by scoring a hat trick during his first game.
I mean, just remarkable. He is so fun to watch because he puts that as a potential result any second he's on the field.
Yeah.
Just seems to always be in the right place at the right time. And that's, like I said, that's probably my second story to follow to the U.S. men's national team.
Well, and it's always really cool when a star meets the moment, because I think the numbers, by the way, the numbers are massive. Like, the World Cup is drawing a lot of eyes, and a lot of eyes of fans that maybe not necessarily are soccer fans. So if you don't have to be a soccer fan to have heard of Lionel Messi, but maybe you're just one of these people that have never watched soccer, and because it's now the World Cup, you're like, all right, I guess I'll give this a try. And you turn on Argentina and he does that.
Right.
I mean, that's like, it's the perfect thing for the sport to have that dude meet the moment. And I always say, like, maybe you're not a hockey fan. If you watch Connor McDavid right away, you're like, he's different. You know, like you can tell when the superstars are the superstars. You don't have to be an expert in the sport. So for Messi to meet that moment and score 3 goals in the World Cup as a 38-year-old player is honestly one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, that was really cool. On the other side of the spectrum, I guess the third story I'm following, and I don't want to be too prisoner of the moment, which I'm sure I am, but to see a country as small as Cape Verde bring Spain, who may be a top 3 or 4 favorite in this tournament, to a 0-0 tie.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see what they are able to do in this tournament, even if it is just how good is their goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And that, as we know, in RSL land, having the best goalkeeper in a game could take you a far way.
Yeah, I tend to cheer for England when the U.S. is eliminated because England, obviously, you know, they're a good team that has a chance to win it. So typically, give me the 3 Lions when the U.S. are eliminated. Of course, it's the homeland for the family.
Okay.
So England's usually my second option.
Okay. Fair enough.
We'll see, though. Portugal.
As long as it's not the British.
Why are you anti-British?
No, just a USA thing, you know.
We broke
we did
away.
a thing. We did a thing.
We broke away a long time ago.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about what they're doing anymore.
I think we're safe.
I don't have to cheer for them, though.
Are you? Wait, you're mad at the country that we broke away from? You're upset at the country that we literally left?
I'm just not going to cheer for the Redcoats, Spence.
Whites of their eyes stuff. What are we doing here? The Revolutionary War ended, buddy. There's a new war if you're looking for a team to get mad at. Let me say this, actually. And it was good to have Kamrani in studio. It is another goal. Was that offside? A goal, Switzerland, 2-0. The Iranian national team, after their game, they have to go back to Tijuana. They're not allowed to train in the country. They were expecting to train in Arizona. And right after the game, they were like, yeah, you're now training in Tijuana. Look, I'm not going to get political about this war stuff, okay? Because unlike a lot of people, I'm not educated. How many people in your life are suddenly experts on the Strait of Hormuz? Like, you hadn't heard that until like a week ago. You idiot. Stop watching cable news. You're not an expert on any of it. But, I mean, just focusing on what these players are forced to go through to try to get ready to compete in the biggest stage. I don't know how they're doing it, man.
That's another story I'm following for sure. And war ended, apparently.
Let's not go there.
Maybe if they sign a deal tomorrow.
Yeah. How many times has that been announced?
I'll break down the Strait if you want to, but we'll stick to the soccer.
Don't. Are you listening to Rogan again? You're listening to Rogan pods, aren't you?
Only like 23 to 27% of the world's oil supply.
All right. No, don't, Porter.
What day you look
don't
at.
do it. Don't do it.
But no, I mean, the fact that they are being disadvantaged from a competitive standpoint, even though, again, these soccer players have nothing to do with a regime that you may or may not want in power, is quite the story. So, yeah, I'm kind of following them as well.
Let's get Pete Hegseth on the show.
No.
Will you? Well, apparently they were accused of, like, trying to sneak in terrorists, which was not even close to a thing. And so, therefore, they're not allowed to train where they thought they were going to train. I mean, look, the bigger picture here is this. One of the things that I find most fascinating about this tournament is that every single game features a team, sometimes 2 teams, with unbelievable stories.
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't have to know who Bosnia is to be interested in a player vignette that has come through the ranks to, like, achieve his dream. So, look, obviously, when it comes to these World Cup games, most of the attention domestically is going to be on the U.S. men's national team. Or maybe you've heard of Kylian Mbappe, who, by the way, was awesome. So you're going to tune into France, Messi, what have you. But if I have a window of time, I don't care which game it is. I'm watching, and I'm pretty intrigued by this stuff for a guy that certainly was never a soccer guy growing up and is an admitted convert to the sport. I think it's been a lot of fun. Real quick, let me get to this. So there was a video that went around earlier this week. Porter, the video of Parker Kingston training down at BYU. Did you see this?
I did.
Okay. So So a video was circulating, and Parker Kingston was down at the BYU football facility. Looked like he was running some routes and catching some passes from Bear. And it raised a lot of eyebrows because obviously the Parker Kingston situation is well documented. We've talked about it on the show. So there's an update, and I just kind of want to. And again, I'm not a lawyer, and our guys from Handy and Handy are going to join us today, coming up at 4:30. So stay tuned for that. We'll do some sports court. But it's been misconstrued as the case has been dismissed. So what has happened here is it was a continuance hearing, okay? So the judge denied the motion and dismissed the case without prejudice because the alleged victim is not ready to testify. So what this means is there's a potential that it will be refiled. Okay, the motion would have moved the trial dates to take place in September. There's now no trial date set. But this is not a dismissal. So, some of the BYU bros that are tweeting out things concerning this victim, maybe slow your roll a little bit because it's a really, really bad look. But we'll get back to this and we'll kind of unpack a little bit more. But my guy, Mike Yam, Thursday afternoon. Mike, are you calling in live from the Knicks championship parade?
Look, Alicia Keys can be belting out, the words New York about a million times, and it will always be a smile on my face when I hear it. So awesome to be with you, man, and appreciate the invite as always.
No, I appreciate the time, and since we're in the space, let's just start there. And look, you know as well as anybody, from a Knick fan perspective, I'm still not sure they want it.
I know.
I didn't think they were going to. I didn't think they were going to after they took a 3-1 lead. I honestly thought San Antonio was going to win 3 straight. That's just how we're wired, right? But where were you when the final buzzer sounded, and what was that like for you as a Knick fan?
Yeah, look, I mean, I was at home. I wasn't working at NBA TV, and I am very happy that was the case. I always loved work, but at the end of the day, to be able to sit at home and just stare at the television as there's a moment where you're like, did this actually happen? Actually, the last couple of days, randomly, I will just say out loud, I can't believe we won. I mean, it just has that feeling. I know there's probably a huge amount of NBA fans or basketball fans that might be tired of hearing about the New York Knicks and, this market and the whole thing. But the reality is, a lot of these major markets, and especially these iconic franchises, and in my mind, the Knicks are one of those franchises. When there's a drought of over, basically over a half a century, 53 years, it does become meaningful. And I think what really captures sort of the essence of this win is when you think about how great sports are in general, and it can be any sport, college football, college basketball, NBA, NFL, and just how it can galvanize communities. And to me, I'm on text threads with my cousin. So my cousin was telling me, she's like, I'm crying right now. She was actually at the parade today and in New York. So, just to be able to bring people together and just how meaningful it is for different communities, to me, is really what makes this thing special. And it just so happened this year it was the Knicks' opportunity to win a title.
So the Jalen Brunson stuff, Mike, is unbelievable to me. We were talking yesterday to our friend Tony Jones from The Athletic, and he made he made the point. He was like, Jalen Brunson is potentially more unique than Victor Wembanyama. Which, when you hear that, it's like, well, wait a second, 7'5". But look, he's a 6-footer that can't jump. He doesn't have great athleticism. He doesn't have great speed. He had 45 points in a closeout game on the road in the NBA Finals. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
It truly is. Now, by the way, I respect him. I don't know if I'd go that far with the uniqueness compared to Wemby, but point taken and certainly understood. At his size, with his skill set, there's a will and a determination. And I think that's, sort of that uniqueness of his story. It's an outlier. And I think in sports, we all see the Rudies of the world, for example, that just kind of grind it out and give you an opportunity to go win, this can-do attitude. But to see it and carry a team, there's moments watching this NBA Finals where I'm like, they can't generate any other offense unless it is Jalen Brunson. And look, here's the other thing. You look at these last couple of games, the fact that Cat wasn't even playing, you're talking about a crucial piece. If you would have told me Cat would be, sort of this ineffective because of his inability to stay on the floor, whether that's him or the officials, however you want to characterize it, I would have told you you're crazy. Like, how can they possibly beat this Spurs team with Wemby, with a plethora of guards who defensively can create havoc against a guy like Jalen Brunson? His ability as this series went on to understand what was happening to him in terms of these defensive coverages, the fact that at different times they didn't send a secondary defender, and Jalen wasn't getting doubled in some of those situations, although obviously the OG tip him sending Fox. However, I don't know if that's a Mitch Johnson. I have no idea if that's a Fox thing. The reality is Jalen was able to take advantage of those scenarios. So to me, he is special. He is unique. I don't know if he's as unique as Wemby, but it really is a special, special performance. And to do it in a closeout game, to me, knowing the criticism just makes it that much more special.
The cat angle is also something that I think is really cool. I mean, you know, for so long he was just labeled as a tremendously talented player, but unwilling to play hard on defense and not able to get it done come spring. And if there's any player in this entire playoff run that's kind of changed the way people view him, it's got to be Karl Anthony Towns, yeah?
Oh, my Lord. Truer words have never been spoken. By the way, the job that I thought he did against Wemby, when he was out on the floor and not in foul trouble, I actually thought like he looked pretty good at different times. Look, the Knicks don't win the championship. They don't get to the finals without Cat. You saw it in the series against Atlanta. You saw it against Philadelphia, and that matchup was a nightmare with Embiid versus Cat. Just his ability to sort of take him away from the basket was a game changer. We saw it against the Cavs. Because of foul trouble wasn't as effective in the series, but they don't get there without him. So I'm with you, and I think. And since you know this, man, because I know you've been around this organization, you understand, you know, the heyday of this team from the 90s and the Ewings and the Oakleys and the Starks of the world. There's a mentality of how do you win games? And this is not just a Knicks thing. I think any successful team that's got buy-in from their fan base, they're almost like a mirror image of what the community is. And I think about sort of the grittiness of New York and those Knicks teams from the 90s, like, that's how they were identified. And I think if you watch Cat for a good stretch of his time in a New York uniform, I don't think he necessarily exuded that. And I think that's why it can be a little bit of a polarizing figure. I think because of this championship, because of his sacrifice on the offensive side, I think he has changed the perception about what he is and what he can be in a Knicks uniform.
We had Mike Breen on yesterday. I'm telling you that because I'm a name dropper.
Oh, yeah.
But ultimately,
he's a Fordham guy, by the way.
Oh, I know. Shout out Fordham. But, you know, it's interesting because you bring up the 90s Knicks, and this team is much more 70s Knicks, right? I mean,
yeah, it's fair.
Right?
It's fair.
You know, that team was known as and look, Willis Reed was the league MVP, and Clyde Frazier's a legend, but Bill Bradley, Dave DeBusschere. I mean, that was a team that was made up of a bunch of guys that played team basketball. And as much as I loved the 90s Knicks, I mean, they would beat the Heat 72-68, you know, and it was a rock fight. So this team's more of a throwback, right, to those teams in the 70s that actually won championships.
Yeah, look, and I think that's an astute observation. I'd also say, too, the way basketball is now currently played, you couldn't do what the Knicks were doing. You know, really the style of play is just totally different. I mean, the fact that a team, it would be unheard of. You're down 20, you're down 22, and to make a run like the Knicks did it repeatedly in this postseason, the three ball is the equalizer. We've seen it happen. That wasn't necessarily the case in the 90s. But you're right. And, like, I don't know if you would agree with this assessment, but I had a buddy of mine years ago tell me, your favorite player when you were 12, he'll never be surpassed, right? So when you think about these conversations that happen on talk radio or on television about, like, who's the GOAT, who's the guy that, you know, is it LeBron, is it Kobe, is it Jordan? You know, like, I'm 44. I grew up in the 90s, so no one's ever going to surpass Jordan. Like, that's just not possible. And I was telling myself that before the finals started, growing up a Knicks fan, I'm like, hey, will you ever be able to admit that this Knicks team is better than the ones from the 90s? And even with the championship, and I love Jalen Brunson, and I think he's probably, if not one, he's probably two on that list, maybe three if you want to throw Walt into the equation because he's got a chip. You know, will anyone surpass Ewing? And for me, no. But, like, that's kind of the beauty of this thing. Like, there's a whole generation now that's getting exposed to great, talented players. And, you know, those 12-year-olds are going to, like, focus in on Jalen Brunson and go, hey, like he's my Patrick Ewing. And I think that's okay. And I think that's great.
So when it comes to the potential of this being sustainable, I'm not trying to get greedy, but part of me does feel like they had to get it done this year.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Because moving forward, and Dolan's already come out and said he's not going to do the second apron stuff.
Yep.
And look, if there's one piece of this that's been a little bit uncomfortable, it's watching that guy own a team that won a championship. But whatever, we can leave that off air.
I know.
But, I mean, how sustainable would you say this is as far as them just simply being in the mix? You know what I mean? It's not just winning championships, but being in the mix.
Totally. So heading into the season, and by the way, I could not agree more with your assessment. If there was a year that they had to get it done, it's this year. Because I do look at San Antonio. I do look at these young guards. I look at an emergence of Dylan Harper. I kept texting, a couple of the guys that I know that are Knicks fans. I'm like, I can't wait for Dylan Harper to be in a Knicks uniform. Like, he's supposed to be rocking a Knicks uniform, just the way he plays in his style. I'm with you. They needed to get this done because the Spurs scared the bejesus out of me. I think this is a great learning experience for San Antonio. OKC's not going anywhere. Where there's a glimmer of hope here from a Knicks perspective is they play in the Eastern Conference, right? Starting lineup generally is going to be back. I thought the bench was terrific this year. They need to figure out how to manipulate and have some of that continuity in terms of contracts and making sure those guys are there. But without knowing where Giannis lands, for example, without knowing what the makeup of the Boston Celtics are going to be with or without Jaylen Brown, because we don't know how that's going to net out, I still think just get there. There's this cardiac kid kind of mentality that the Knicks brought to the table, and to me, that's what keeps the door open. Am I going to call my shot and say back-to-back champions? Haven't seen it in a long time in the NBA. I think it's hard, and it's going to be tough sledding, but because they're in the East, there's that factor. I'll throw another caveat your way, league expansion. If there are two teams that come in, and let's say just hypothetically we're talking about a franchise in Vegas and one in Seattle, and the Sonics come back, and by the way, that would be good for the NBA and that city because we do need to see the Sonics franchise back alive again. That means you're going to see squads from the West go to the East. If Minnesota, because that's kind of that conversation, if the T-Wolves end up in the Eastern Conference, what a coup for that organization, because with Ant-Man and some of their pieces, they, in my mind, become the biggest threat in the East. And look, Detroit, don't say, I think they need to figure out what they want to do with Jalen Duren and what that team is going to look like. There's quality teams that are there. I do think that path, though, for the Knicks to get back to the finals feels more manageable because of the conference that they're in.
So a couple of Jazz things here, Mike, because I did want to ask you about a dynamic. Because, of course, if you're a sports talk radio host in Salt Lake City, you can't do 4 hours of Knick basketball every day. People will start throwing rocks at you. So you're trying to watch this thing.
The podcast you and I are going to do.
There you go. Exactly. So I try to watch this stuff through the prism of like, okay, well, how can I make this topical for the Jazz? And look, we all know the deal. For the most part, if you're going to win a championship, you got to have Kobe, LeBron, Mike, right?
Yep.
But now we can add the Knicks to the Pistons in 2004, I think, as a team that didn't necessarily. And look, I don't know where you put Jalen now. I think he's changed the conversation about who he is. But as the Jazz and other teams try to move forward to win games, and hopefully at some point Jazz fans can experience what Knicks fans are experiencing now, what sort of lessons can be learned about what the Knicks did winning a championship without, one of the top maybe 4 or 5 players in the NBA?
Yeah, here's what I tell you. Leadership matters, right? Roster construction is paramount in today's NBA. Specialist in how you put around a star player, some of those guys are meaningful. And I think that's really what defines this Knicks team, because Jalen Brunson obviously is a centerpiece, but they've been able to put some pieces around him that really have truly made a difference for this organization. So I think there's that aspect of it. But if you're a Utah Jazz fan, and I know there's a million of them that are listening to this show right now, you got an opportunity to find a game-changing franchise player in a week's time. And to me, that should be enough optimism. I would also contend, and Spence, because you probably saw, well, I wouldn't say probably, you definitely saw more Jazz games this year than I did. I saw bits and pieces. We ran the highlights on NBA TV. But there were moments when they're up on a monitor, and I'm like, yo, like they're up, in the second half, and things sort of, guys sitting down, however you want to describe it. To me, there's some pieces that are in place here, and maybe not the game-changing franchise guy, but enough players that if you feel confident and comfortable around one of these dudes that you can take, to me, there's at least positive signs there. And to me, patience is king, because I'll say this, fans in Salt Lake City, you got this on the college football side with Kyle Whittingham. Patience, continuity, consistency for a really long period of time. And you even see that now with Morgan now taking over. Not a ton of turnover. And to me, that's meaningful. And I think for any organization, there's a playbook that's in place. And if you have the right pieces and you are patient, you potentially can make a significant run. But you obviously need the dudes, and hopefully they're able to get one in the draft.
So news has kind of surfaced this week. Tim McMahon joined the show and reported that the Utah Jazz have made an offer of 5 years, $140 million to bring back Walker Kessler. I like Walker. I think that's a very fair offer. It would make him the highest paid center in NBA history who's never made an all-star team. He's also coming off shoulder surgery. But Tim is reporting that Walker and his camp are not happy with that offer, and we're at a bit of an impasse out here. Now, look, as I remind everybody, as much as I love Walker, this is not up to him. Okay, restricted free agency is friendly to the team, and it's not friendly to the player. And I think if the Jazz say, look, you don't like 140, go find something else. I don't know that he finds it, Mike. I mean, tell me where you're at with this story.
Yeah, I'm with you on that front. And this is, I'd be curious to know if this is the camp, if this is Walker, how those conversations are. And you could also you can make the argument, it doesn't matter. Player ultimately is the one that's making the decision. The agents are working for him. It is their job and opportunity to try to get top dollar. Look, those that's easy for me to say, right? That's generational wealth. That's something that can change multiple generations in your family. I think the resume says one thing right now. Now, there's so many of those examples, right, where you can go and get a guy and you see the upside of what they're capable of doing. You lock them in and try to get that value. But there's a fine balance here between what have you done, what can you be as an NBA player, and what the market says that you can get. I'm with you. I think if you're talking about what he gets from another team, I don't know if we get to those numbers, my opinion, and it sounds like yours too.
Last thing, I'll set you loose on this. The other story, every year we deal with this whole hey, maybe Ace Bailey doesn't want to live in Utah. Well, I can promise you Austin and Danny Ainge don't care. Okay, so Darren Peterson won't work out for the Jazz. I can promise you Danny and Austin Ainge don't care. If A.J. DeBonce is off the board at 1 and Danny and Austin think Darren is the pick at 2, Darren, welcome to the Utah Jazz. What do you think?
Totally, 100%, and especially because it's Danny Ainge, so there's that aspect of it. You can try to navigate a situation for you. It is very rare when that happens, and I also don't think you and I talking, and your listeners, who do you think goes 1? It's going to be AJ. So, just be ready for, what that path looks like right now. I think the more and more people that I talk to around this process, the talent evaluators, the scouts, just people around teams, AJ looks like the number 1 pick at this point.
Mike, thanks for the time, buddy. Appreciate it. Be well. We'll chat soon, okay?
Yeah, you're the best, man. Always appreciate it.
All right, the great Mike Yam, our buddy from the Pac-12 Network once upon a time. His job during basketball season is with the NBA Network. His job during football season is with the NFL Network. He also does some work with the CW for college football. For all of his work, at Mike_Yam is where you find him on social media. All right, we've got Canada and Qatar coming up. I want to let you know that Advanced Window Products has an excellent special for you guys right now. Now, here's the deal. It's hot today, and it's going to be hot for a while. So if you've noticed that your home is really warm, regardless of how high you have the air conditioner, or it's really cold in the winter, regardless of how high you have the heater on, it's your windows, and you're just wasting a lot of money. So the deal is right now, it's their summer window special. Take advantage of it by saving $2,500 when you purchase 10 windows or more. A new wrinkle to this deal is if you don't need 10 windows, they're going to prorate the discount for fewer than 10. So kind of a new deal there. If you're getting ready to sell a home, this can really up the value of your home because they have a lifetime warranty that you can just give to the new homeowner. It's a great deal, great time to save a lot of money. And let's get that house temperature where it needs to be so you can sleep better and your family's a little bit more comfortable by dialing 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or online at advancedwindows.com. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Tony Parks is going to join us coming up next, so keep it here on ESPN 700. The New York Knicks held their championship parade today in Lower Manhattan, Canyon of Heroes. Utah Jazz are looking at the NBA draft coming up next Tuesday. I want to let you know that Tuesday, starting at 6 o'clock, we're going to have great draft coverage for you at the Engine Room, 1338 South, 300 West, right outside the old ballpark. Speaking of the old ballpark, voice of the beast, Tony Parks, Thursday afternoon. What's up, man? How are you?
I am doing great. I have actually thought about you a ton during this past week, especially with the Knicks parade and all of that stuff. Like, I know you're a longtime fan, and you've been connected to that team and lived through all the misery before a world championship that you never would have guessed would come. You'd bet on it not happening, and it actually did. And I love the way you were talking with Mike Yam about it, still like wondering if they were going to blow it, like still wondering even after they had won,
Yeah.
if that was going to happen. But it was unique, too, because I really loved that championship. It was very storybook. I thought it had so many great angles, so many great messages. You know, we love that in sports. And it's one of those in major pro sports that it reminds me, it's never exactly the same, but it kind of gave me similar feels to the Cubs when they won the World Series. And you know, the kind of feeling that I had with that, and also like everything involving it, from the manager to the head coach of the Knicks, from, you know, some veterans on the Knicks to key players that may have been overlooked for, you know, both teams. Like there were a lot of great parallels. So I sat back thinking about that, thinking, man, Spence must be in heaven with this thing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. It was really cool. And as I said to Mike, you know, understanding what I do for a living, I try to watch all of this through the prism of what it means for the Jazz. But I wanted to ask you this, Tony. I wanted to ask you, like, I understand why people didn't love those 90s Knicks teams. I mean, I did, but from the outside in, group of pretty rough dudes that would beat you up, and they weren't necessarily a high-flying up and down team. You go look at some of the final scores from those playoff runs. There was one where they beat the Heat 72-68. So I understand why maybe people didn't love that group. But if look, I also acknowledge that whenever anything is won in New York, the New York stuff can be a little extra for folks. But if you remove all of that, I feel like this is a really likable team, don't you?
Yes, 100%. And look, everybody always thought that if you weren't a Yankee fan, you should automatically be a Yankee hater. I never was. I just never was. I was one of the rare people who was indifferent to the Yankees. You know, I rooted for them in 2001. I rooted for them in '96. Right. I'm trying to remember. I rooted for the Mets in 2000. Right. But I didn't have any real like hatred or love for them. Like different reasons I'd root for or against the Knicks. Rooted for them in the '99 finals. Rooted against them in the Reggie Miller battles. But I was always really indifferent to them. Even if you take away the New York stuff, which I understand when it's New York, it's a big deal and all of that. Take away all of that. This was a really special team. I mean, the Brunson story is terrific. I went on your show, filling in for you, and said, Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals is tomorrow. Game 1 of the NBA Finals is tonight. And I called Oklahoma City and San Antonio. And I 100% believed that then. So for all the people that doubted them, I was 100% one of those guys. I thought they were a nice story, thought they were a nice team. I didn't buy them as winning the title. The come-from-behind win against the Cavs, the come-from-behind win in that Game 4, Anunoby and that tip-in is, it brought me the chills of Larry Johnson and the 4-point play against the Pacers in '99. Like, it had so many beautiful moments in that journey, and the one part of the story that cannot be overlooked was Mike Brown. And it really goes to show you that your environment and your support and, all of that really does matter. Does it mean everything? No, but it really, really makes a difference, because he was a complete outcast and had to be sent out for not getting the Kings deeper than they wanted to. And I think, if anything, it'll show you that when you have dysfunction in your organization without the proper amount of support and all those things, but you get the right people, the right situation, the right places, it's amazing what can happen. And so I was really happy for him. So when the finals started, I was going for the Knicks. And if you would have said, well, the series is going to end in 5, I'd be like, yeah, it's tough. The Spurs are great. And, they're just a juggernaut. I would have never guessed that the Knicks won that series in 5 games. And so the way they did it, They deserve all the love in the world. Clutch plays. I mean, especially what was at the end of game 2. Like, that was amazing, man. It was fun. I loved the series. And while the NBA, I thought had a few black eyes throughout the course of the year with gambling stuff and, it still has a lot of the problems that people are complaining about, I thought the finish to the whole thing was really storybook. And if you just love sports and you love what that is, you remove all the New York stuff. That just was very beautiful and special. I loved it.
Well said. So another year and another scenario and media narrative creation machine that part of me wonders is like, are we bored now? Like Darren Peterson not deciding to work out for the Jazz, to me, it doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't. I mean, let me back up. The one thing that it could mean, and I don't know if it does, but it could mean that Washington has told him that he's going at 1. Now, Washington has not played their hand at all. We have zero idea. But when I say it means nothing as far as the decision-making process of the Angels as it pertains to what they will do if they think Darren Peterson is the best option at 2 and he's on the board at 2. Darren Peterson will be drafted. It's the same thing with Ace a year ago. Yeah. All of the noise. All right, they're trying to get him to Washington at 6. Well, guess what? The Jazz have the 5th pick. Sorry, Washington. Ace is now a member of the Utah Jazz, and I think he's going to be awesome. But I wonder what you make of all of this as we're 5 days away from the NBA draft, Tone.
From now until the draft, every little thing is going to be magnified. It'll be magnified to an insane level. And as well as anybody that when you really get down to it, like, one, the Liars Club is always open. So anything you're going to hear about, this team doesn't want that, this guy wants this, and I heard from this guy's agent that he wanted that, stuff that's going to get out is out because they want it out. And so that's part of it. The other part of it is this, not working out for a team or working out for a team. My big thing is you would have to know for certain that he would be not just not wanting to go to Utah, but such a malcontent that he will completely destroy anything that you wanted to build coming up. If that were the case, then you don't draft a guy. But until then, you don't, I'm not going to look into any of this, with as deep a level of understanding. Now, if they came out and said, hey, this guy broke his ankle, in a motorcycle accident, now I'm going, whoa, you really have to consider how long's the recovery, this, that, the other, right? Like, we could go through this thing every which way you can think of it. I try not to look too much into some of that stuff. The teams that are doing their due diligence and, for Austin Ainge to go deep into it and to know what it's going to take, the biggest thing they're going to want to know is which guy is really going to accelerate that level of winning that we want to be a championship level team someday. And they are going to know what those answers are. And the nice part is when you're picking 2, you have a lot of different guys to choose from, and there's very few ways that you could go wrong with this. This is a great draft. There's so much great talent right there at the top. Personally, I'd love to see AJ just from being around here, but that's not, I'm not coming at it from a front office perspective or even a fandom of the team perspective. I love it just for the fact that I had a chance to watch him up close, and I'm really a fan of his game. But I can't say I have some of the in-depth analysis to the elements of each individual's game on which guy could be number 2. So, look, this is why they're paid what they're paid. And they know that you don't have as much room for error when it comes to bringing a guy in that's culturally going to be a disaster. As long as he's not going to be a disaster culturally, you go with the guy that's going to help you win, even if they didn't work out for you. You've seen what the guy can absolutely do. As long as you've had a chance to kind of really get to know what this guy's about, then I think they should feel comfortable in their decision, because this is why they're paid the big bucks, to evaluate and make these choices.
I think AJ is going to go 1. I don't know that.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's kind of the consensus. It's certainly what I would do at this point, but I do love Darren. I think he's going to be awesome. The other name out there is Cameron Boozer, whose father, Carlos, of course, played here and works here. The question, Tony, is if there is any sort of doubt as to whether or not Darren Peterson will be here long term, and you have some sort of inclination that Cameron Boozer will, does that sway your decision-making process at all?
Well, I mean, it comes down to this. First of all, anyone can tell you that 7 years down the road, we don't know how they're going to feel about it. I mean, they could feel that way today and have no vibe about it going forward. But if you have the concept that a guy absolutely does not want to be there, absolutely would have the attitude that this is kind of nice for now, but honestly, this is not really where I want to be, and you're looking at both of them and you feel like you can have equal success with both of them, then you go with the one that you feel like would want to be there long term. I think it's interesting when watching and evaluating people is, when I've watched people who love what they do and hate doing it where they're at. And I've watched it affect them in any industry and performance-based industries. And sure, they'll go out, they'll be a pro, they'll do what they do. And I've watched it in a Utah Jazz locker room. I've watched it in a visiting locker room where a guy loves what he does, hates where he's doing it. So as long as they're not going to step into your locker room, hate their situation, and then negatively impact the organization, you just go with the player that can go on and help you be successful. So like I said, none of them are ever going to give you the inclination they don't want to be with you long term. I would doubt it. I don't think so. But to me, I don't know, Spence. This is one of those. That's such a long-term thing. We're not talking 3 years here. We're talking 7. So even if there was a part of them that didn't want to be there, I doubt that they would ever express it in a way that was evident.
The other Jazz storyline, Tim McMahon joined the show this week and reported that the Jazz have offered 5 years, $140 million to bring back Walker Kessler. It would make Walker the highest paid center in NBA history who has not made an All-Star game. And look, I very much like Walker. And I think with Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio, you've got to have guys that can at least make it a little bit difficult on him as he's going to continue to get better and grow. I am also of the opinion here that, I trust the reporting of Tim McMahon, but sorry, Walker, it's really not up to you. There's a thing called unrestricted free agency that you will earn after your next contract. But at this point, restricted free agency is good for the team, but it's not good for the player. And there's a reason for that. The NBA wants to give teams like the Jazz and everybody else a full 7-year runway to try to develop players and convince them to stay here. He will have his day where he can choose where he wants to play. Today is not that day. How do you think this ends?
Well, I mean, I think it ends with him. I think he should absolutely stay with the Utah Jazz. I don't find a situation that a team is going to give him more than that. I actually would be surprised. If they want to, they feel free to do that. And if I'm the Jazz, it comes back to this. Look, if I'm the Utah Jazz right now, I look at my organization, I say, we want guys that not just want to be here, but that they're excited to be here, and then they want to be a part of winning in the future. We want guys that want to win with each other and for each other. They're not just here because, well, they kind of had to settle for it, and I guess it's the best we're really going to find, I guess, at this point. Well, no, that doesn't help you hit optimal levels. So that actually had surprised me a little bit, and if I'm the Jazz, you're not going to be good wasting your time with people who are going to have any kind of sour attitude about wanting success in the future. So maybe it's Walker feels fine about it. His agent doesn't, right? And so his agent's saying, just sit back. This is how we play the game. Don't worry. I got this. You just let me handle all this stuff. So I don't know enough to know if Walker's fine with it, but he's saying, hey, I'm letting my agent handle this, whatever, do your thing, man. But at the end of the day, Walker is a great fit with the Jazz. I think the Jazz, a great fit for Walker. He's coming off the injury. Like you said, this would be the highest paid for any guy who didn't make an All-Star. So, look, dude, you haven't really done anything when it comes to doing something with hardware. You haven't done anything, and you're going to get paid more than anybody in your position who hasn't done anything. So I would think that Walker would be pleased with that situation, and you're right about that. The whole concept of restricted and unrestricted free agent, my guess is this is a representation part of people speaking out and wanting that to be a part of the mouthpiece and a part of whatever game that they're playing, and that it's not necessarily the overall emotions of a player in Walker Kessler.
All right, Tony, before I set you loose, let's move away from basketball. I do have a question about one football story. And, when it was after the show ended, I want to say maybe Monday or Tuesday. I don't remember what I had for breakfast, let alone what day it was. But when I got the alert on my phone that Brendan Sorsby had declared for the supplemental NFL draft, I just thought, you know what, that feels right. That feels like what needed to happen. And look, I am not one that believes a mistake should follow you around forever, and I sincerely hope this kid goes on and finds a way to make a living and lives well and gets well and all of those things. He just could not be allowed to play quarterback in college football after everything came out. And again, when I got the alert, I'm like, yeah, that feels like the way this thing should have ended. What about you?
When I saw it, I thought, oh, good. Look, the fact of him playing would have been bad. What I really didn't care for was the pat on the back tour and the amount of feeling sorry for him as if somehow he was a victim in all of this, and how everybody was being so insensitive to this poor little guy. And he, and look, think about the situation he's in, and, and let's let him rebuild this. No, stop right then and there. Stop. That is not just integrity of the game. It's just flat out a horrible message to ever send your sport or anything like that. And Texas Tech, they came out of this thing looking, that was just strange in the weirdest of ways on the way that they went about this. I was really stunned as this was progressing and as it was going on and watching this happen. I thought, man, this is actually going to happen. This guy's going to play in a season where that's going on, and it's just going to be allowed, not because what he did was wrong, but because we had to feel sorry for him. And the fact that he was expecting, or that there was this attitude that people should be buying tickets and jerseys for his pat on the back tour. And it's like, no, man, I'm all about, hey, get your help, do this and that. But what I watched happen was this weird trap that if you did not find a way to give him what he wants, then you were a person that lacked empathy. And I thought it was just very wrong. I thought it was very wrong to vilify people who opposed the idea of playing in that situation. This ended about as well as it could, but let's be honest, they were going to roll with it, and this was going to happen. And I thought in every way it sent the worst message for sports, the worst message for young people. And when we talk about certain things getting out of hand, college football's had enough things getting out of hand, but this was really the cherry on top.
What's the latest with our friends out of the Bees, bud?
Man, team playing well. Winners in 21 of their last 32, having a really great finish towards the end of the first half. Great talent here with the ball club. They've been clutch, man. I had that series at Reno, and they had 19 of their 39 runs scored in the 8th and 9th inning. Last night they were down, rallied back to tie it in the 8th and 9th, to send it to extras. We talk about, different teams can be fun to watch, or, whether they're winning or losing. Well, this team's been winning a lot, and they're fun to watch. And especially when it comes to the late inning drama, they've just been a blast, man. So it's been a really, really fun time, and we have a great weekend portion set up. We have Christmas in June Saturday. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be wild around this place. And then Father's Day. Join us Sunday night. It's going to be a Sunday night game. So come on out for that. But you're going to love, some of the young talent that's here now is, guys have been able to get the call up because of others from the Bees headed up to the parent club with the Angels. So this has just been a blast. From Bryce Theodosio to Kyron Paris, Josh Lowe, who we know had all those years with the Tampa Bay Rays, now with this team, and he's been blasting the ball all over the yard. So this is just a really fun team to watch, and this summer is going to be a blast. And as I'm watching batting practice right now, there's dudes blasting it off the batter's eye as we speak.
It's a rumor that Vinny C is going to dress as Santa Christmas in June.
He is. Oh, yep, he is. That was how he's brought back. We had to find a way. So we had to find a way, and they don't call him Vinny Christmas, Vinny C, all the nicknames, as you know. It's all a part of it. I do know that they were trying to limit the amount of tickets that were purchased. I know that frustrated you with the amount that you were trying to buy for you, your friends, and your family. Yeah. Look, certain guys just have a following. Yeah. And you can't describe it. Yeah. You can try. I'm just not arguing against it, right? At this point, the following is the following, and you got to give the people what they want. Yeah, the it factor is the it factor. It's undefinable, but, some people just have it, bud. Hey, thanks for the time. Be good. Let me know if I can do anything for you, okay? Man, love the podcast, by the way, man. Great interviews, so insightful, so much fun. So I always look forward to it. And so, keep doing what you're doing, man. You're the best. Thanks, brother. Happy Father's Day on Sunday, okay? Hey, much love. Thank you, my guy. Right back at you. All right, great, Tony Park. Speaking of Father's Day, the dads deserve a day at Lagoon. This Father's Day, ESPN 700 is giving you the chance to win a 4-pack of passes to Lagoon, the place where thrills, family fun, and great memories come together. Whether dad's a roller coaster junkie or just wants a day with the family, we've got you covered. Listen all week around noon. Try to score 4 passes to Lagoon. It's Father's Day fun from Lagoon and Utah's home for sports, ESPN 700. All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up next, our old producer, good friend of the show. He's now with the Utah Jazz. John Paul, JP Chunga is going to join us. Dunny coming up at 4 o'clock. We'll do some World Cup with Dunny. Good day to have Sports Court on the show today with Handy and Handy. Shed some light on the
latest with the Parker Kingston stuff. Then we'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the show, and we will say goodnight at 6 right here on ESPN 700. It is not going to last, but Ryder Cowan is an amateur golfer, and he currently is your leader at the U.S. Open. Shinnecock Hills Golf Club in Southampton, New York. He's 3 under par. Give you a leaderboard update in just a bit. Canada and Qatar are about to get going at 4 o'clock. I would love to be able to watch that, but since we go live every day to 6 o'clock, I probably won't be able to make it home in time. Just grinding per usual. All right, let's bring in our next guest. Special friend of the show. He is on the masthead as a co-founder. He left us. We miss him. He's with the Jazz. Hello, JP. How are you?
So if he's an amateur golfer, does he have another job like you?
I doubt he has 4 jobs total, but I bet he has another. I don't know. I'd have to ask him.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty impressive to be leading at the U.S. Open.
Yeah. Gives me hope, John Paul. Maybe that'll be me one day.
How'd you do in your Open?
Anyway, moving on. Jazz draft in 5 days. How's your game, by the way? You been swinging a club?
Well, since you saw me last, I have my finger injury, so I'm out for 2 months.
How did you hurt your finger?
I fell down playing the beautiful game. I was readying for the World Cup, was playing outside, perfectly placed through ball into uneven ground, and I fell on the turf, slamming my fingers into the ground. I have a mallet finger. Drew Holiday played through it in basketball, which was pretty impressive, but he wasn't a golfer, so that affected his game. But now I'm dealing with it on my own end, and I'm out for 2 months swinging a club.
All right. Well, I would imagine you're the one that played the perfect through ball in, though, correct?
Come on. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a creative player, as someone who sees things that others don't, yeah.
Well, there's no way that you were on the other end. I mean, you're not necessarily a target striker. I think that's probably fair.
I've been described as the DeMarcus Beasley of rec league soccer here in Utah. So take that for what you want.
Overrated and lazy and doesn't get back on defense?
No. Marauding. Up and down.
Marauding. Have you played indoor with CK?
I have not, no. I don't have a scout on his game.
I need to know what about Andy? Andy's got to be dynamic up the flanks, no?
I've seen him play. I wouldn't call him a flank player.
Yeah. I hear he gets frustrated if things aren't going well.
If you're looking for a striker to try and put the ball in the back of the net, that is Andy.
To try to put the ball in the back of the net.
That's what I said, yeah.
So he's a bit of a ball hog, is what you're saying.
I didn't say that.
Okay. Where do you want to start? You want to give me a couple of hot World Cup takes? Where do you want to start?
World Cup is such a great event. I mean,
yes, it is.
I don't know if you've been to a World Cup game. I would love to go to a World Cup game if the tickets were under $500.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that the whole world is coming here to the United States 32 years after it last hosted, and to see how much progress we've seen in the growth of the sport here, but also in the growth of the national team for the U.S. is remarkable. How many times would I have to tell you a couple years ago that, no, the coach isn't going to be Greg Berhalter. It's actually going to be someone who managed in a Champions League final is leading the U.S. team. I don't think I would have believed you at all. That is a crazy concept to think about. And the way that they're playing is so modern and fresh. It's so different from the way that I grew up, at least watching the national team and thinking that the only way they would get results would be scraping it by and having opportunities late, have a goalkeeper save them. Now the goalkeeper was the unsettled position. It's quite a different way that the U.S. is going about it this cycle.
Do you feel like I deserve some credit for being the originator of 3 in the back? Because I felt like I was mocked, and now everybody's doing it.
Well, like many innovators, you are mocked at the beginning, but you have to stay through and take the slings and arrows to what modern football is.
It's well
the
said.
Innovators are always mocked. So I think you should wear it as a badge of honor. Take it as people like me who are trying to take us back to the 1990s. I want to win games 1-0. You want to win them 5-4, like PSG and Bayern, and play really fancy stuff.
Yeah.
I think you should wear that as a badge of honor.
No, I appreciate that. I do play with more flair than you do. And you're about results. You're about grinding out results. There's no doubt. Remind me, U.S. men's national team in Mexico are the two teams you cheer for in the World Cup. Is that right?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Right. Okay, so give me best case scenario for both based off of what you've seen so far.
The U.S. you're starting to think some fancy things with the way that they were dominant on the field against Paraguay. I think they clearly can get out of the group and win 1 or 2 knockout games and put themselves in a very good situation depending on matchups. And for Mexico, it's the same. You're on your side of the world. It absolutely affects the European teams. It affects everybody who's coming here not being able to deal with the travel. You're much more adept to it. Mexico has a little bit more to show, but they have so much talent with Mota, who's a 17-year-old that is playing in World Cup games and looking like he absolutely fits. So even they could do the same thing with getting out of the group and winning a knockout game. But the knockout rounds have never shown Mexico to have much success. But with it being on this continent, they certainly can do that this year.
I also have never been to a World Cup game. I am trying to go on the 25th, but to your point, I have to decide if I want to sell a kidney or something.
Exactly.
Dude, it's ridiculous. Are you following the secondary market or anything? Because the prices are just going up.
I have looked into it a little bit, but I get depressed because it's on this side of the world. I should be able to go.
Yep.
Okay. Bosnia is training here. I should be on a flight with them to their next game. But it's unfortunate that FIFA is outpricing people and jacking up prices, and there's so much demand. But I think I'll look at it half glass full. It is really cool to see the stadiums filled, to see how the sport unites everybody, how Scotland is taking over Fenway Park. Those things are the cool things that you look at when you realize it's not just a U.S. game, it's not just a Utah game. It is truly global, and people are coming from all over the world to enjoy these stadiums and to enjoy this sport.
The other weird thing is, of course, a bunch of RSL players have played for the U.S. men's national team or other teams in the World Cup. Like, even former players and coaches are being asked to pay ridiculous amounts of money. I think Nikki is going to the game on Friday as a guest of like the board of governors. Like, I was hoping to get a deal through like a former player and a coach. You can't. It's wild, man.
Well, and think about what that deal would be like if Kyle Beckerman started against Belgium. And they get through that game. Man. I'm sure he would be able to cut something pretty nicely and get you in.
It'd be great if you could do one hit without bringing up something that stings, man.
I'm sorry. It was malpractice.
It was.
He should have been in that game.
There's no doubt. Kyle on the pod this week, by the way. He's living the life. He is no longer coaching. And when I asked, like, what's next, he's like, nothing. Just hanging out, being a father and a dad, man. He's just being Kyle Beckerman.
He was one of the great players, one to follow as a fan of the U.S. men's national team. But once you shift into the role of having to cover him, incredibly deep. I'm sure you did in the podcast how he reads so often. He's so well read. And this is a guy that has been bred to be a soccer player since he was a kid going to Bradenton. How different the pathway would be now when you think about it. But the fact that he was able to still find a little bit of balance, be worldly a little bit, use soccer to take him to places that he never would have gone, experience things that maybe he would have never had. And it's a wild life that dude has lived.
It was interesting to hear him talk about that time when they first started the Bradenton Academy, because he was part of the first group in that academy that was Gooch Onaweyu, and it was Landon Donovan and your boy DeMarcus Beasley, the Marauder, as you described him. Because the genesis of it, I didn't know this, that group of elite U.S. soccer players, they would send them to Europe to play in Germany and play in England. And then the players they played against would go back to like Manchester United, and they'd go back to Juventus. And Kyle's like, I just went back to like high school soccer in Maryland.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's wild to think about like how they develop players over here and how we're maybe starting to finally develop them over here.
Well, this was something that I was talking about with Syracuse men's soccer coach Ian McIntyre when I was up there going to school, because he has two players who are on national teams, Miles Robinson with the U.S., Tajon Buchanan with Canada, how we need to adjust the college soccer season, much like how guys are going back to their high school soccer teams. Sometimes when you go on a U23 camp, you're going back to play just 6 months with your college team, while the version of you playing in England is getting games all year round at a high level. So it's evolving, and as the U.S. deals with this pay-to-play structure, having that first class of Kyle, DeMarcus, and all the players that have come through college soccer, as things change, the U.S. can get there. They need to make the necessary moves to catch up to everybody in the world, because it's not just a population problem. It's not just if our best athletes played soccer, they would win the World Cup. It's not as simple as that. It goes to the youth development and really investing in players that might not have the opportunity to pay $10,000 to travel to Bradenton and be bred for a soccer career.
And Pochettino kind of talked about this in a recent interview where he basically said, I told the group it's one thing to play soccer, it's another thing to compete, and had some anecdotes about what it's like. And he would know, obviously, as Argentinian, coming up in other countries, and how you have to fight tooth and nail just to find a field and then find a team and then grow through that system. Whereas over here, to your point, it's a different culture where youth soccer is filled with kids whose parents can afford to pay their way through the system. It's just and maybe there's something there as to why we haven't competed on the highest of levels just yet.
It's big business, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, I hate to be to each according to his ability, each according to his need, but we need to socialize this sort of thing to the point where everybody can have a little bit of access to soccer at a high level. That's why all these players are boosting up in Man City, where it's a free access. There aren't these barriers for people who are capped out because their parents can't afford it. There are scholarships to go to these academies and to produce all these players, even though they have a fraction of the size. Croatia is smaller than New Jersey, and they're reaching World Cup finals. It's about investment. It's about the entire pyramid of building up to a national team that begins at the youth levels.
Give me a pick to win it and a dark horse to win it.
So I picked Brazil because I'm boring and because I believe in Carlo Ancelotti, one of the best managers in all of soccer, but he does it by vibes, which I know you're opposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But he is the ultimate vibe manager. And then for a dark horse, give me Norway with Erling Haaland. If he gets on a hot streak, that dude will take his team as a backpack and get them through to a knockout phase and potentially a quarterfinal, semifinal.
To be clear, I'm not anti-vibes. I'm just pro-results.
Well, he gets both.
Okay.
He has Champions League trophies.
Okay.
He is the vibe coach.
Okay.
You can see him in wonderful pictures with a cigar in his mouth celebrating with Real Madrid.
Of all the Jazz players and coaches, who's watching the most World Cup?
Will played. He was a 6. I think we've talked about this before.
Indeed.
He's probably loving the World Cup. He even, in his youth, went to the Euros in Austria.
Huh.
So he has a deep-rooted appreciation for soccer. A proper Red, you'll never walk alone, a Liverpool fan. So I'm sure he is glued in on as much as he can in between tapes.
All right. For me, most people talk about Chloe Lacasse and Mina Tanaka. I dig into Ann Tejada and go down to Cece Delzer. I mean, I go a little deep. I don't want you to go that deep, but obviously the Royals are playing good soccer, and as the voice of the Royals, I wanted to give you a couple of moments to talk about the season for the team.
I think the most emblematic player is Kate Del Fava.
Mm-hmm.
I wish, the fact that you had so many names is so awesome for the team because they are playing so well. But Kate Del Fava has started every single game since this team has come back for the Utah Royals. She's been so consistent, 2 times Iron Woman for this club. Just recently got a call up to the U.S. women's national team U23 program as an overage player. And that's only because the U23s were there with the full women's national team. So it was an opportunity to get a look for her for the senior team while they're in the same place in Brazil. And for her to go from regular starter in NWSL with Kansas City, then to come to Utah, go through all the struggles, and then see them go to second place in the entire league this season, see her work, all those starts, the fact that she hasn't missed a minute for Jimmy Coonrotz, the head coach, the fact that she can do that and get a call from Emma Hayes and the U.S. women's national team, that's inspirational stuff for a person who thought she was going to be a veterinarian coming out of Southern Illinois University. She thought she wasn't even going to have an opportunity at women's soccer. And now she's a pro and getting a look by the U.S. women's national team, leading the Utah Royals into the top half of the NWSL and on their way to making some noise in this league as it continues its experiment here in Utah. They're playing great soccer.
Dunny is my next guest. Is there a question you'd like me to ask him?
I would love to hear his thoughts on the press of Jimmy Coonrotz. How has that affected the way that they've played things?
I'll lob that out. I think I'm gonna. I think I know what his response will be. I know. Has RSL captured you back? I know at one point you were Missouri Show Me State guy with RSL. Have they brought you back into the fold?
I think I need to see a little bit more because I'm flying with this Utah Royals team. Having to call second place in the NWSL, they were number 1 in a 1-2 clash against Portland on the final week before this break. Has the men's side been on that type of run? They've had a good first half of the season, right? But 1-2? I don't know. I'm looking at those groupings before I go to the men. I
just know that a 10-year-old John Paul would have been devastated if he heard Diego Luna was not called into camp.
Yeah. I watched that U.S. men's documentary.
Yeah.
And I was expecting to see Diego Luna a little bit more.
And you did. It just was the episode after I told you. I was waiting for the apology that was coming my way.
Yeah, but it was faulty information.
It was one episode later, John Paul, and you know who to blame. It was Trey's fault. It's on Trey.
So if I say on the show, Darren Peterson's going 1, and he goes 2, I will say
much different thing.
I was 1.
Much different thing.
1 off.
No, much different deal. It was literally the next episode, and you owe me an apology.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Panic in the building that Darren Peterson will not work out for the Utah Jazz, I would assume.
I wish there was an example of a player who didn't work out here who ended up flourishing.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That's right. Ace Bailey did this last year where he didn't work out in the building and yet still was picked by the Utah Jazz.
Yep.
The approach is the same. Zero panic because you know that this front office, Austin Ainge, Danny Ainge, Justin Zanuck, Will Hardy, the people who are making this decision, they're just going to pick the best player available. And at 2, you have options with 4 really good talents at the top of this draft. With the second pick in the draft, the Utah Jazz will select who? I have no idea. I don't think that they know. The boards shift, but if you're looking at my board, I have Darren Peterson 1, Cam Boozer 2, AJ DeBonsa 3.
What?
And then Caleb Wilson 4.
You have AJ 3?
I have AJ 3.
Are you doing mock drafts now?
I've been messing around with the no ceilings draft simulator a little too much.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think you could say that.
Are you concerned about his hips?
He's not as thin-hipped as I thought he would be, but he has a pro body, slithery. The concern is the shot.
Yeah.
Can he make three-pointers, right? But ultimately, I think at the top 4, you're really getting a standout crazy player. That's why it was so incumbent at the draft lottery. It was the biggest thing that happened so far in the offseason. Where would the Jazz land? Would they get a top 4 pick? And they got 2. They made it past the commercial break. It's huge. And so when you're in there, it really is you're playing with house money at this point because you made the move at the trade deadline with Jaren Jackson Jr., and now you're set up for another young player to add to the core that you have while being very high on Ace Bailey from the rookie season that he had last year, getting second-team all-rookie. And this is the next big thing for this front office to determine Tuesday at the draft.
Walker Kessler is a restricted free agent. The panic is also unfounded. Now, you work for the team, so maybe we should steer clear. But look, bottom line is I don't see any scenario where Walker Kessler is playing for anybody else than the Utah Jazz next year.
I talked to so many people around the team. They always include him into the plans. I was one of the only people who did a story on Walker Kessler his rookie season. I even talked to his dad, Doc Kessler, Houston Kessler, how competitive he is in having an older brother that would push him into the bushes when they would play basketball, and he would come back. And Houston played at the University of Georgia before Walker was even thinking about going to UNC or Auburn. And the competitive piece, I'm sure, has hurt over the last 4 years of his career. The injury was devastating for him this season, but the fact that he feels valued by Will Hardy and the investment of his game helps in his comfortability here. The restricted free agency, it's always going to be a negotiation. It should be a negotiation in a first apron, second apron, kitchen apron system of the CBA, and every dollar and cent matters. But that's why you have an agent, and that's why they do the work that they do, so that they can negotiate the best deal for you. And ultimately, I think these two sides find a way to get a deal done.
Would you rather have Devin Dampier or Bear Bachmeier?
See, now you're coming with the hardball questions at the end, and I don't know why you do it to me. I don't know why. Because it all matters. What's my offensive line looking like? What are the big uglies in front of him?
No, I know you're an O-line guy, but
exactly.
I didn't want to go too deep into that pool today. All right, young man, tell all of our Jazz fan listeners where they can go get by far the best Jazz podcast in the market.
Utah Jazz Podcast Network, anywhere you get your podcast. I talked to Jay Billis. It's up right now. And you can also see the video version online on the Utah Jazz's YouTube page, Jay Billis talking about the draft and the options for the Jazz at 2.
You talked to a friend of the show, Jay Billis, on your show? That's great.
Yeah, the Billustrator. I wonder how you got that connection to Jay.
Well, my guy. Well, look, appreciate your time. Get better with the finger. Let's get out when you can, okay?
Absolutely.
JP, John Paul, the former producer of this program when we first started the show, which, by the way, is coming up on 8 years in August. Porter is by far the longest tenured producer. Had JP for a matter of months, then the Jazz stole him. Thanks a lot, Aaron Falk. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Coming up on the other side, Dunny, our guy Brian Dunseth. Good day to do Sports Court. The Parker Kingston news is, of course, very applicable. We'll get to that a little bit later on. It is The Drive on a Thursday, and it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Canada and Qatar underway. 6th minute. It is scoreless as the FIFA World Cup Group D in action. Mexico will get going tonight, and then the U.S. men's national team back in action tomorrow. It's Mexico, South Korea, 7 o'clock on Fox. Our next guest is my usual co-host on Talkin' Real, episode 17 tonight. Kurt Schmidt, sporting director, stopped by. Brian Dunseth, happy Thursday. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, my man. How are you?
I'm good. Where do we find you these days?
I've been down in Monterrey, Mexico, so I'll be down here for first 4 games of the World Cup, part of the television broadcast coverage through the round of 32, and then off to Philadelphia to celebrate July 4th and 250 years, and a part of that round of 16 contest that could potentially be Germany against France if everything kind of plays itself out. But so far, so good, man. Incredible atmosphere the other night between Sweden and Tunisia. Such an incredible city. It's the same city that Real Salt Lake had come down to compete in CONCACAF Champions League way back in the day down in Monterrey. And kind of seeing the duality of Monterrey fans, Tigres fans, the history of such a beautiful and gorgeous city. And something that I learned a long time ago is Monterrey is actually the sister city, or one of the sister cities of Salt Lake City, and very similar to like kind of the Mount Olympus mountain range. They have a saddle down here that when you take a look at their stadium, BBVA Compass Stadium or Monterey Stadium right now, the mountain range right behind the stadium looks like a horse's saddle. So just an incredible view, an incredible city.
Very cool. Well, let's not bury the lead, Dunny. 4-1, the U.S. men's national team gets off to just an unbelievable start. Kind of an A-plus performance from Mauricio Pochettino's side. What stood out most to you?
Urgency on both sides of the ball. The group that I'm working with is an English group, and they could not believe how quickly. I mean, the amount of conversations surrounding how impressed they were winning the ball back defensively, getting stuck in, very, very aggressive. But more impressive was the way that they continued to kind of push forward, getting behind, and constantly look to press Portugal as deep into their own half as possible. And in terms of, I know we conceded a goal. I say we. I know the U.S. conceded a goal. But in terms of complete performance, probably by far the most complete performance we've seen so far from Mauricio Pochettino and this group of players.
So the first half was just dynamite. How much of that had to do with the presence of Christian Pulisic, and what are you hearing about his status for tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, according to all the players, he's going to be just fine. I know they're very careful with him. It's something that they were doing in a very similar fashion with Chris Richards in the 2 games, Senegal and Germany, heading into the start of the World Cup, just making sure he was prepared. For Christian, listen, he's we talk often in other sports about being faces of the franchise. Well, that's Christian Pulisic. He is as important as anybody else on this team, but when he's on the ball, he's capable of doing special things. And I think when you put him in conjunction of guys like Flo Balogun, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, Chris Richards, all of a sudden you're talking about a group of players that are capable of alleviating the pressure for Christian to find those pockets, to be absolutely ruthless in moments of need. So far so good, and it sounds like they are trying to make sure that he is 100% healthy. The great news is that worst case situation, we've already seen Mauricio Pochettino have multiple players that can step in and not replicate him, but do it differently, and as a collective team still have the same amount of success that they've had when he's on the field.
Is there any thought process out there that, okay, we've got the 4-1 win in our back pocket, we think we can handle Australia, who clearly played better than most were expecting in their first round win against Turkey 2-0. But is there any thought process out there that if Christian's a bit compromised, you just kind of sit him out and try to make do without him?
Well, they did that in the second half. I mean, we were all gobsmacked down here that he wasn't coming out for the start of the second half. Sebastian Berhalter comes in. That means that Malik Tillman pushed a little bit higher and more on that left-hand side, parallel to Weston McKennie, something that I thought it looked great. It looked great. And again, different than Weston McKennie, different than Christian Pulisic. but still as effective as a collective group. So what I would tell you is that this team is a plug-and-play team. They feel comfortable. Whoever gets that call is going to play at a really, really high standard. But I think, obviously, with the way that we've seen the commercialization of Christian here in the United States, a.k.a. Captain America, a.k.a. virtually every single commercial we've seen outside of a couple, that he's the guy that we live and die by. But the one thing we have recognized is U.S. Soccer did a phenomenal job predicting of what the potential of this group stage was going to look like. And in the last 12 months, you and I were talking about a couple weeks ago on Talking Real, they played against Turkey, they played against Paraguay, they played against Australia. So they have a certain amount of familiarity with potentially what these games could look like.
Give us a preview of this match tomorrow coming up in Seattle, which should be a great atmosphere. And as I referenced, Australia was a heavy underdog against Turkey, yet came out on the right side. So what should we know about Australia, and what is the U.S. men's national team up against?
The one thing to keep in mind was the last time that they played out in Denver, Colorado, Christian went down in the first half because of some heavy challenges. He picked up an injury, and that's when Diego Luna replaced him and got a big pop on from the fans at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. What's different this time around is after the U.S. beat Australia, there was this weird, and it was nothing. It was a really big nothing burger. A guy named Mike Grella, who's one of the sports pundits for CBS and Paramount Plus, just basically said something to the effect of, Australia, we beat them, we're going to beat them again in the World Cup, blah, blah, blah. And somehow he's become the most hated man in Australia because everybody is absolutely killing him, and they just continue to kind of replay his comments. And now Mike's absolutely leaning into it. And every single day he's like front and center from the television shows, the news reports, all of every conversation surrounds Mike Grella. So inadvertently, he's become like the most hated American in Australia, which he just is giggling about. Listen, you talk about size, you talk about strength, you talk about presence. From the opening whistle last October, they were in for every single challenge, every single tackle. They're going to have to find the right temperament between kind of throwing their weight around and the referee managing that physicality, because obviously everyone's going to be acutely aware of it. But as you said, it's going to be up in Seattle. For those that don't know, Seattle's one of the preeminent hotbeds of soccer here in the United States. If you know New York Cosmos and you know Pele, well, then you might be generally aware of Seattle Sounders having as important of a historical relevance in the game here in the United States. And on top of that, it became Seattle Sounders in Major League Soccer have become a really organic rival of Real Salt Lake over the years, both with their dominance of wins, at America First Field, and then the amount of playoff battles that they've had over the years. So all things can be true, but I cannot wait for the opening whistle to see if the United States can replicate what they did against Paraguay, because it feels like these guys, I had a conversation with Tyler Adams in the build-up to that game, U.S.-Germany out in Soldier Field in Chicago, and he said to me, Dunny, we were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in Qatar. Now we understand how to prepare. We understand what to expect. And with that experience, we know what our role is. And I don't think it should be lost on anybody who experienced the 1994 World Cup, as you and I did as teenagers back in the day. The legendary status of Tony Meola, Alexi Lawless, Marcelo Balboa, John Hartz, Tab Ramos, Eric Ronaldo, I could go on and on. Those guys were my heroes, and they've etched their names as living legends in cement for what U.S. Soccer's legacy was, and these guys recognize it's their opportunity as well.
Tyler was the captain last World Cup, and he's still on the team, obviously. I thought it was going to be him again. Christian Pulisic is literally named Captain America, and the armband goes to the old savvy center back, Dunny, someone that you probably know in Tim Ream. What'd you make of that?
Yeah, I understand exactly why, because from the very first training sessions, and we were all kind of prognosticating, the whole Messi, the whole Cristiano Ronaldo, are they going to make it to the U.S.? Are they going to play in another World Cup? It was the same conversation for Tim Ream. I mean, remember, if it hadn't been for Miles Robinson tearing his Achilles and Chris Richards dealing with calf and knee issues, those two guys would have been the starters in Qatar, and it ended up being Tim Ream and Walker Zimmerman, respectively. So I think from day one, and you and I have talked about this, I've been around the U.S. team from the moment that Mauricio Pochettino took over down in Austin a couple of summers ago. He looked at Tim Ream as a guy that, in terms of standard, experience, and expectations, kind of holding the line and towing the line and holding everyone accountable. So if you would have said to me, who else is the captain in this group that's not wearing the captain's band? Tyler Adams, absolutely. Christian Pulisic, absolutely. Weston McKennie, absolutely. And Chris Richards, absolutely. So it's almost like you have this quadruple of captaincy that is currently available to the U.S. men's national team and Mauricio Pochettino. But yeah, he's given Timmy the captain's band. But Spence, he made it very, very clear that doesn't mean he's going to start every game. So I think it's a role that everybody understands that because of his veteran presence and his leadership and accountability over the years, that he's a guy that can be trustworthy to be a man amongst men. And that's exactly what he is with this group.
Goal Canada, 16th minute, looks he was onside. That will stand, I believe. So Canada takes a 1-0 lead. Let's go back to a couple of other U.S. men's national team questions before we expand on. You were the first one that told me, like, Flo Balogun's the 9. He just is. And you were right. And obviously it was great to see our 9 get a couple of goals. What stood out most to you about Flo?
He's just different. And I mean that with all due respect to Christian playing in that false 9, to Ricardo Pepi being the impact player off the bench who continues to show whether he starts or whether he's a substitute. He can do an amazing job. And then Haji Wright. Listen, he's just a different player profile. Born in New York, his mom was not allowed to leave the country and get back on a plane. Ended up being a child born in New York City. And fast forward all these years later, even though he was raised in kind of the greater London area and grew up in the Arsenal Academy, that he was always interested in this idea of representing the United States. It was kind of maybe the opposite of Diego Luna growing up in a Mexican household that supported the Mexican national team. And yet Luna felt like the DNA, the connective tissue, was the U.S. men's national team. Flo is one of many guys that have come into as dual nationals that has looked at, even though I've grown up over in Europe, I've always seen myself as an American. Jedi Robinson, Anthony Robinson, another perfect example. Serginho Dest, another perfect example. But he's got a different player profile. His athleticism, the way he runs the lines, how clean he is with his touches. And I remember saying to you, when I got back from Orlando a couple of years ago, pre-Mauricio Pochettino, when there was whispers that Flo Balogun was potentially going to switch allegiances. He had represented England at the lower levels and had been sniffing around a couple of England camps, that he could potentially swap and make that one-time change to the U.S. And if he did, that was going to change the fortunes of the U.S. team. That's exactly what we saw against Paraguay the other night down at SoFi Stadium.
Last World Cup cycle turned into a horrible reality TV show. And one of the main stars in that show was a young man named Gio Reyna. And some interesting things have been written about the difference between Mauricio Pochettino and Greg Berhalter as it pertains to the way they're handling Gio. And, the weird stuff with the phone call about the incident that happened 20 years ago, the Reyna family upset, Claudio Reyna texting with the sporting director about why isn't my kid playing, Greg calling Gio out in public as a sulker on the roster. So I just thought it was a cool moment, Dunny, for the kid to see him get that goal after 26 passes strung together by the U.S. men's national team. Give me your thoughts on all that.
I love Gio. I know that I sound like a homer when I say this, but I was able to be around Claudio Reyna, one of the best players that we've ever had in the U.S. men's national team system. And I've watched the tragedy that's occurred with the loss of his older brother years ago, and then watching his growth as a footballer, a soccer player on and off the field from his time in New York City and what he's done over in Europe. And I know at times I've almost been bullheaded, stubborn, uncompromising, because I continued to just, kind of continue to tap the button on Gio Reyna. And he's been a player that's been unfortunately dealing with a lot of like niggling injuries, but when he's on the field, he's just different. And I know that Mauricio Pochettino and plenty of national team coaches have continued to kind of point out, well, you got to be fit, you got to be playing, you've got to be. Well, there's certain exceptions, and for me, in a lot of ways, Gio's been a unicorn in that position. He's different than Christian. He's different than Diego. He's different than Weston and Malik Tillman. He's just special in moments because the way he kind of gallops around. He kind of, the way he runs, it kind of looks like a giraffe. He's got these long legs and this kind of unique gait with the way that he moves around the field, but his technical ability is superb. And that Trivela that he scored with the outside of his right foot was everything that you want to see. You know, because the reality, Spence, is, you know, when we're teenagers, we're young, we're naive, and in moments we're emotional. And I think that what we've seen in these last 4 years is a player that both on and off the field has continued to just simply grow up. And I mean that with the utmost respect. He's married, and obviously after the celebration, he's announcing to the world that he and his wife are pregnant, with that celebration of throwing the ball underneath his jersey and sucking his thumb to let us all know that they were celebrating that news. So just to see that, it justifies his inclusion. And with so many questions surrounding why Diego Luna was left off the roster, well, one of the small glimpses and snapshots was because a guy like Gio Reyna was still heavily relied upon by Mauricio Pochettino and his staff. But to your point, that whole backstory from Gio will be a footnote in eternity for what happened in Qatar. And unfortunately, every time that his name is mentioned in conjunction with the Berhalter family, because on top of that, Greg Berhalter's son, Sebastian Berhalter, is in the U.S. men's national team and playing a significant role as well. So there's a kind of a duality of a coming together of this circular moment of what was a horrible situation in the beginning. Kind of that door has been closed and that circle's been closed as well.
Pochettino, by the way, do you have any insight into what the relationship is like between Sebastian Berhalter and Gio Reyna?
Yeah, I mean, I've not seen anything to suggest anything malicious or nefarious. Every time I've been around, you can just feel, and I say this bigger in context of the entire team. These guys have grown up together. I mean, they've. What people forget is we look at this as an isolated event, the 2026 World Cup, but in reality, these guys have been together from the under-15s, the under-17s, the under-20s. I mean, you're talking about this weird thing, and usually we weaponize the word vibes. But I think the one thing to think about is it's almost like an opportunity to reset when these guys get together on the national team because they're spread out around the world. And the moment that they come back, it's almost like there's this incredible feel-good factor of a brotherhood that they all know that they've experienced this world. They've traveled around together. They spend so much time in so many different countries going to battle and going to war, so to speak, against all of these other teams that when they get together, they kind of look at each other and they just instinctually know what they need to do and what to expect, especially after that experience in Qatar a couple of years ago.
You referenced these guys growing up together, and you also came up in the U.S. soccer ecosystem. So I want to get your thoughts on some other Mauricio Pochettino comments about juxtaposing developing talent in the U.S. and how they do it elsewhere, where, elsewhere you're scraping and fighting and clawing and sometimes playing on dirt fields and bare feet, and kind of characterize the U.S. soccer ecosystem as spoiled rich kids. He didn't say that, but he essentially said, I'm telling my group that it's one thing to play soccer. It's another thing to compete. And kind of, comparing the way that we develop talent here to the way that talent is developed elsewhere. And maybe there's a reason as to why we haven't been able to crack through, at least win a World Cup or compete consistently on a global scale because of the differences of the two. What are your thoughts on that?
How much time you got?
Plenty. You got a 4-hour show, buddy.
I could probably use this time to actually finish my education at Cal State Fullerton after only doing 3 semesters. Yeah, listen, I've back in the day when Luis Gil and the U.S. under-20s failed to qualify against Honduras at America First Field, there was a fascinating post-game press conference with the Honduran manager, who was both in charge of the the Honduran 23s and the national team. And he was asked a simple question: what's the difference? And his response was, in the United States for Christmas, these kids are getting iPhones, iPads, and whatever else they're given. He's like, my players are lucky if they get a soccer ball. And you can probably start and end the conversation right there, because where he kind of went to next was, when my players step on the field, they're not only representing themselves, they're representing their family, they're representing their country, but they also know that every single time there is a stroke of luck that comes into play, that they're just hoping someone's keeping an eye on them for an opportunity to take that next step. And his experience was naming a couple different players. Albert Elise, probably at the time, the largest player, who had worked his way out of a really dangerous city that he had grown up in and found himself playing in Europe, and understood that his journey and his pathway was never going to be complete until he attained the amount of success that he had set for himself. But he also knew that that responsibility also was a primary factor in how the future path of his family was going to look as well. So the game has some beautiful, beautiful stories because of moments like this. And I think that, the bigger picture in this is, one of the things that I learned during my travels as a soccer player, as a footballer, and representing the national team, is that every time I took the field in another country, we were looked at with such disdain with, our $200 soccer cleats and our crispy white U.S. men's national team Nike jerseys, and almost like, these guys, we're going to absolutely throttle them. And, what Mauricio is talking about, that competition, is that there's a game within the game, and there's a manipulation factor, there's a physicality factor, and there's a guts. I don't know how to properly describe it, but it's guts. And do you have the guts? Do you not have the guts? And I think it was something that last summer Mauricio Pochettino was really dialing into, with guys trying to take breaks heading into those two games against Turkey and Switzerland and the start of the Gold Cup. He wanted players that were 1,000,000% committed to the national team. And he just couldn't understand the idea of somebody turning down a national team call-up. And by the way, it wasn't just with the full team. It was also with the under-23 team, the under-20 team, the under-19 team, the under-17 team. The idea that guys were tired and needed a break, he couldn't wrap his head around it, because he played for Argentina in the 2002 World Cup. And anytime Argentina called, you picked the phone up and you jumped on the first flight to get your ass over into the national team setup. So however you try to describe everything that he's talking about, it's basically the idea of implementation of my generation now as broadcasters, coaches, executives, strength and conditioning, dietary psychologists, and this next generation of our kids working their way. And as we continue to kind of transmit all of our information for, these kids around the United States that continue to have more and more amazing opportunities. I mean, you and I were there day one at Real Salt Lake when your dad brought RSL to the city. I mean, we were training at Rice Eccles Stadium on the turf every single day. There was no America First Field. There was no Zions Bank training facility, the Zebra down in Harriman. When Trey Fitzgerald and I walked in there and I saw that facility, I was so jealous and envious, but I also had a tear in my eye, because, it's that first step where you feel like soccer's made it. So I think we're still in the infancy. As long as we can stay away from the insecurity of the conversation, we still have a long ways to go. But I think it's also part of this healthy mentality that this group of players has, to recognize that they want to have their names etched in cement the same way that the 94 group has here in the United States.
As Americans, Donnie, we believe that we can do special things. We want to believe that our teams can do special things as well. So when Jurgen Klinsmann says we'll never win the World Cup, we don't like it, even if he might be right. As we expand our horizons here, as we dare to dream big, what's best case scenario for this U.S. men's national team this cycle?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I've watched people pontificate and make suggestions and, have these bold statements of runs and what level and all this stuff. It's pure dumb luck. It really is. I mean, if VAR was around in 2002, Greg Berhalter's header that was handled by Torsten Frings on the goal line means that, we go to, the semifinals of a World Cup. So there's a lot of factors. I think at a bare minimum, if this group can continue to perform the way it did against Paraguay throughout this tournament, they can. I think they can do. They can do a lot of special things. But right now, the heavyweights, it's very, very clear who that is. And as of right now, I think Argentina and France, respectively, are widely considered the two teams that have the potential to replicate what we saw in 2022, which was a magnificent final between two monster teams in Qatar.
All right, before I set you loose, I'll let you take a stab at this in whatever direction you want. You have Kylian Mbappe's brace. You have Harry Kane's brace. You have Aaron Holland's brace. Of course, you have Messi's hat trick. Your favorite World Cup moment so far, takeaway, game, player performance, whatever it is.
I go with Lionel Messi. All due respect to everybody else. And by the way, Kylian Mbappe had some phenomenal goals. Yep. Erling Haaland is just an absolute menace. And Flo Balogun's goals as well. For Lionel Messi to be doing it at his age with a team that is built specifically around him to still be so incredibly dynamic, it's almost the opposite of what we saw from Portugal and Cristiano Ronaldo the other afternoon. And by the way, my quick shout out is at some point I would love to see the offside rule changed for one final time, that we're not talking about body leaning. We're only talking about the feet.
Thank you.
I think that the stupidity in trying to think that a defender is going to be stepping forward towards the midfield line while an attacker is going to be stepping into and leaning towards a goal. That's where, as a former defender, I would love to see the offside law just be about the feet and the feet only, no other body part. I know this whole identity of it's about scoring a goal. Which body part can legally start the goal? I can't stand it. It drives me nuts. Anyways, that's my hope. With Lionel Messi, he could have scored 4 goals the other night. He gets his hat trick. There's something serious going on with the health of his father as well. You could see the emotion. You could see the tears. His father's back in Rosario. There's plenty of stories and reports coming out about how serious this situation truly is. But even when he walked off the field, people forget that he and Lionel Scaloni, his head coach, shared so many triumphs and heartbreaks together wearing that national team jersey. And the moment that he came off as a sub, both teared up. And you could see that physical hug meant something more than just celebrating those 3 goals. So for me, a guy that sees the game with such clarity in terms of his vision, his technique, his agility, his athleticism, and shout out to the little guys, because all we ever talk about is size and strength, and you got to be big, and you got to be strong, you got to be able to jump through the roof. And Lionel Messi is just the perfect example of the opposite of all of that. So to see the way he scored those goals at his age and the importance to what he means, especially coming off 4 weeks ago with muscle fatigue down at Inter Miami. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of his broadcasts for Argentina. I've been part of the Inter Miami broadcast for MLS on Apple TV. And as I sit there, I'm just constantly in awe of how he's able to, with the knowledge of every single player on the other team is scared to death of him, and still trying to, minimize his constant effect of the game and shut him down with multiple players and whack him up and down the field, that he's still able to create such clear-cut opportunities. Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with the start, this quote-unquote match day 1 of everyone getting a game underneath their belt. For me, I got to go with Lionel Messi.
Man, it's such a great tournament. You forget because it's once every 4 years, but it's so much fun, buddy. Appreciate the time. Be safe, and we'll chat soon. Thanks, Donnie.
Sounds good, my man. Talk to you.
All right, Brian Dunseth, doing some work down in Mexico for the television production side of the World Cup coverage. Canada scored another goal, and Qatar just had a red card pulled on them. So this might get weird. Canada's a really good team that had a really rough opening match, but Canada leads 2-0 in the 36th minute, and Qatar is down to 10 men. I want to let you know that Father's Day is coming up, and Father's Day shopping starts at You Into Golf. Get dad new clubs with Callaway. Trade in your current clubs to get 2 times the bonus trade-in towards any new Quantum, X Forged, Apex, Riva clubs. You Into Golf by Worldwide Golf. Get there. Porter, this is how I do the show now. Just so you know.
Relaxed?
Well, we got a lower back issue going on. So just sitting like this. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm not being lazy. I'm just trying to alleviate some lower back pain. So I think this is how we do the show now.
Feet up, chilling?
Feet up, laying back, watching a little golf, a little soccer.
Sounds like you need a stretch instead.
I do. I have been. Your boy went to yoga. It's not helping. I'm doing the best I can.
I don't know what to tell you. You're getting old.
Thanks, bro. All right. The U.S. Open is run by the USGA, so my snobby golf friends don't text me again.
USGA leaderboard update.
Indeed, at the U.S. Open, Shinnecock Hills Golf Club in Southampton, New York, Wyndham Clark is 3 under through 9. He's your leader as of now. Sam Stevens is the leader in the clubhouse with a 68. Preston Stout, an amateur golfer, is 2 under through 10. And then a bunch of golfers at 1 under, including Rory McIlroy, Ludwig Oberg, Russell Henley, Xander Schauffele, and others. So there you go. U.S. Open going on. We will catch a break. Good day to do sports court. There's an update with the Parker Kingston situation. I'm not a lawyer. Garrett Handy is. He joins us next on ESPN 700. Canada with a 2-0 lead over Qatar. It's in the 44th minute, and Qatar is down to 10 players after a red card was pulled, so it might get ugly for them. Got Mexico, South Korea tonight, the World Cup rolling along, but it is time now for Sports Court. No Preston today, so it's my guy Garrett Handy on a Thursday. Garrett, you're a World Cup guy, aren't you? You're enjoying this tournament, yeah?
Yeah, I'm a fan. Loving it.
Okay, give me your pick to win it before we get into this.
Pick to win it. Argentina's looking really good
yes,
right now.
They are.
Right?
Yeah, no doubt. Doubt.
I'm going to go with it. Let's go for a repeat.
There you go. All right. Interesting things unfolding concerning the Parker Kingston situation. The case has been dismissed, but it was just revealed. Porter just sent me a tweet from a reporter from KUTV that the prosecutor in Washington County is announcing that they do plan to refile. This is as a result of the mental health state of the victim. Now, this has unfortunately led to a lot of, well, how shall I say, maybe BYU bros taking victory laps because they think it means he's innocent. It very much does not. I am not a lawyer. You are. Walk us through this.
Well, you're exactly right on that point. I mean, in some ways, this is kind of some classic tension, right, that we see in a criminal case between, the rights of a victim to pursue justice and the rights of a defendant to their rights, right? So that's what's going on here. And of course, this case, we've talked about it, that we were surprised at the speed that it was moving along. I think there was at first going to be a trial the end of April, or I think is what it was. And so there's been a few continuances. And so we come now, trial was supposed to happen July 6th to the 9th. And just a few days ago, the prosecution, this Washington County, filed a motion to continue. And basically what they lay out in the motion is that they need more time. They want a couple more months because, as you mentioned, the victim has some documented medical and mental health concerns. And so they go back and forth here, really in their motion, talking about the fact that, hey, we typically wouldn't ask for this, but we really need more time. And if we don't have the victim, we don't have a case. I mean, the state's acknowledging that, right? I mean, the victim's just really critical to having a case, and so the prosecution goes through a little bit of an argument on a balancing act here for the judge, and say that the judge should continue the case. So what's interesting here is instead of granting the motion to continue or denying it, we're instead the judge dismissed the case without prejudice. And so without prejudice, that's the important qualifier here, because it does mean that it could be refiled, as you just talked about. And you're right, there's a press release from Washington County attorney saying that they plan to refile the case. And so this is kind of rare. I mean, it's going to be a little controversial because of, if you remember a little bit earlier, the prosecution sought to have this judge removed from the case. And part of the grounds for that is they felt like this judge was favoring or biased towards Parker Kingston because he was a football player. And so I think what could be interesting here is, maybe this judge thought, hey, this is a way for me to get out of this case. I mean, I'm not saying he did it for himself, but it's like, he's looking at it and saying, and basically telling the state, look, you guys apparently are not ready to bring your case. You've already asked for a continuance. Now you want another one. Your victim's not prepared to testify. So why don't you bring the case when you're ready? And I'm going to dismiss it. And maybe in the refiling, there's going to be a new judge assigned to this case. So I think that's a little bit of an interesting take. And of course, it looks like there was a statement from the victim's family, really not happy with this, that they feel like this gives Parker Kingston the ability for him to move on with his life, and while the victim doesn't. So it's kind of unresolved. I mean, this is going to be hanging over both the victim, the state, prosecution, and Parker Kingston for some time, and we'll see if they actually do refile the case.
Can you tell me where you're seeing that victim or the statement from the victim's family?
There is a statement on, I think, on Fox 13.
Okay.
They came out and had a statement. They said they are shocked and deeply disappointed by the dismissal of the case. They said, our hearts are with our daughter, who showed tremendous courage in coming forward and placing her trust in the justice system. Today, that trust was shattered when the court prioritized getting an athlete back on the field over justice. And they go on to talk about how difficult it is, and this is true, for a victim to come forward, and then they're just saying, hey, we've got to give the victim some latitude here and some time. Here's an interesting tidbit from the motion to continue. The prosecutor, apparently the defense had pointed out that the victim, there's posts on social media where the victim seems to be doing fine, participating in different activities and doing things. And so the prosecution had addressed this in their motion, and they said, look, just because someone posts something on social media, that doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to testify or mentally prepared to testify in a criminal trial. Like, these are two different things. I mean, basically telling us social media that is not a depiction of real life. I can agree with that.
Cosign.
But yeah. So, there's behind the scenes, there's some things going on here where the defense is saying, hey, we think she can testify, but the prosecution, apparently they do have documented from a doctor, talking about the fact that she's unable to continue right now.
So let's stay in this space for a moment, and I'm just gonna dumb it down because, again, you're the attorney and I'm not. And I know it's hard to predict these things, and it's a sensitive situation, so obviously you'll handle it the right way. But in my non-lawyer brain, I'm thinking, okay, does this give them a certain amount of time where this young lady can get better and get well? And when she's in a better mental state, is that the point where then they move forward and refile when she feels like she is able to testify? Is it as simple as something like that?
Yeah, I think it is, right? I think this is going to depend on the victim's timeline and her ability to testify. And I think the prosecution, next time they file, if they do, and I'm going to hold out that if, right? I don't know. I know they just said in this statement that they intend to refile. I think they need to say that, but we'll see. So they're going to wait until their case is ready to bring, and that they can move forward. And so I think that's the timeline here, and I'm sure people will bring up things like, well, isn't this double jeopardy? Can the prosecution just file against you multiple times for the same crime? And this doesn't run afoul of that rule. A jury had not been impaneled, right? The case really never got to trial. Of course, that's the issue. So it doesn't do that. And our judges, under criminal rules, they do have an ability to do this, where they feel like, hey, the case can't be brought, that they could dismiss it without prejudice. So it just leaves things open-ended, Spence, and we don't know when it's going to be refiled.
One more thing here. Is there a window where they have to follow as far as the time frame goes for them to refile? And if they don't refile it in a certain amount of time, is this thing potentially going to go away?
Man, I should. That's a little bit of a complicated question, but there's a statute of limitations, right? They need to, and I'm not at this moment off the top of my head, Spence, not exactly sure how long that is, but it's some years, right? So, yeah, technically they've got I think plenty of time to refile the case, and I don't know what that means for Parker Kingston or getting back on the field this fall. If there's a pending potential, criminal charges that could be filed but haven't been filed yet. I'm not sure how that impacts his ability to play football.
Yeah, and I believe the deal is he either has to play for BYU or he can't play for anybody because there's no longer a secondary portal that's open.
Well, fair, right? Yeah.
And wasn't he expelled from BYU? Am I misremembering that?
No, he was. I don't think he's going to play again at BYU. We've got they reported an honor code violation is how this will go, right? Because his defense was that it was consensual. That's his defense. So not that it didn't happen, but that it was consensual.
Right.
So yeah, I guess I don't know, maybe supplemental draft.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. And speaking of the supplemental draft, let's move over to our second story for the day. And for the sake of time, this will be our final one, but let's stay in the space for a few minutes. And look, I'll just say the news came down after the show. So when I got home and the alert came into my phone that Brendan Sorsby had declared for the supplemental draft, it just felt like that's what needed to happen. And I don't want this kid to have a scarlet letter the rest of his life. I hope he goes on and finds a way to make a career and gets well and all of those things. But my understanding is without the threat from the Texas Attorney General, the Big 12 would not have had an angle to file the lawsuit that they did. And then the NCAA also filed their own lawsuit looking to expedite the process. Bottom line is it does end with Brendan Sorsby heading to the NFL, and he will not be playing college football. But take us through the legal angle of how this all went down.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, that the lawsuit filed, and again, so going back really quick, and everybody I think understands, Sorsby files his lawsuit right against the NCAA, challenging his ineligibility for gambling. And the judge grants the injunction, and so he's got the ability to play. There's a 2-game suspension. But his underlying case at that point remains. And so here, instead of the NCAA did file an appeal the same day on that issue, on that eligibility issue that was ruled on. But so here comes this second lawsuit about a week later, the one you're talking about, the Big 12 files against Texas Tech. And the Texas Attorney General. And so this is really the thing that puts the pressure, right, and forces this issue. And really, like you said, I think forces a resolution that needed to happen. I know I'm here to talk about the legal angle of this, but from a practical standpoint, Texas Tech, this is going to be a rough season, I think, every time he came out on the field. But if that was going to happen. So, I think this happened in the right way. But, right now, I guess, his lawsuit's not withdrawn on eligibility. But the minute that he has, declared for the draft, he did withdraw his underlying lawsuit. Challenging his eligibility. So he's currently, as we sit here today, ineligible for the NCAA, but eligible for the supplemental draft.
Well, what a saga. I think everyone's ready to move on. And honestly, I feel like Texas Tech is probably breathing a sigh of relief themselves. I mean, it just would have been a difficult thing for them to traverse this season,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, except for the $4, $5, $6 million in NIL money that apparently they've paid out. They're ready to move on.
Well, how much of that money belongs to Jeffrey Kessler now is my question.
Right, and Jeffrey Kessler's going, "Hey, I got this great result for you," and now it got undone in just a few days. So it's pretty interesting. I mean, there's still one lawsuit hanging out there, and we'll talk about it some other time, right? Is the Cincinnati lawsuit against him, for over his NIL deal at Cincinnati. So interesting to see what happens there.
Garrett, appreciate the time, bud. For any of our listeners who have legal questions, how do they get a hold of you over at Handy and Handy?
Yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody out there with your legal questions, especially in the area of personal injury. You can reach us at 801-264-6677 or go to our website, handylawutah.com.
Appreciate the time. Have an excellent weekend. And, of course, as always, go Utes.
Thanks, Spence. Go Utes.
All right. Garrett, Handy, no Preston today. But if you have any legal questions, I would encourage you giving them a call. Really good, decent people that will help you out if you're going through something and don't really know who to talk to. All right. We got 3 hours in the books. We have 1 hour to go. The final hour of the program is next on ESPN 700. Tom Haberstroh, friend of the program, NBA Daily Assist style. He might have the best bit of all of NBA media. He is getting attacked by Knicks fans who did not read his piece. So every year, Tom Haberstroh does the thing where he writes a piece on why the NBA champion needs an asterisk next to his name, next to their name. So he did it with the Knicks. And what Knicks fans aren't realizing is he does this every year with every team that wins the championship.
Right.
This is the ultimate did you read the article comment section.
And goes back year by year by year by year just to describe like one of the reasons that maybe that team got some help or otherwise. Pretty good stuff.
His whole point has always been there are so many things that have to fall into place for a team to win a title.
Yep.
So if you actually click on his piece, literally he lists every NBA champion in history and then goes on as to why the asterisk is supposed to be next to their name. What's your take on fans on floats during championship parades? Are you pro or con?
I don't know that I have a take on any of this. Again, my first experience with a championship parade. I don't know.
We got Chalamet, we got Spike, we got a bunch of Knicks fans on the floats on the parades.
It's a little over the top for me, but so is the whole celebrity row thing during the games and the attention that grabs. So yeah, I don't know that I'm the target audience for them anytime. So do your thing, whatever. Have fun.
Among the do I call them highlights? Among the scenes from the New York Knicks championship parade today, Tyler Kolek nearly got arrested because the cops didn't know he played for the Knicks.
Yep.
There was a skirmish between two young ladies that ended with one young lady on a pole twerking.
There we go.
In the other one's face. And that young lady that was below, watching the lady twerking in her face, removed the lady's shorts and looked like she was trying to rip off the undercarriage situation.
New York's getting crazy, huh?
Yeah.
You should have expected that.
Yeah. So we have a twerking fight, Tyler Kolek nearly getting arrested, and a lot of chaos. What do you think a championship parade in Salt Lake would look like? Do you think there would be chaos here?
Not like that.
No.
I mean, it would be chaos, but a little bit more behaved chaos.
Less twerking in Salt Lake than there is in New York?
Yes,
No.
Measurably.
Okay. All right. I want to give a shout out to Garrett Handy joining the program today for Sports Court. This Parker Kingston situation continues to just be really disturbing. Any of you tweeting out like victory laps, and I'll just like Brady Papinga, dude, like what is your deal? So the case was dismissed without prejudice. The Washington County attorney has announced they intend to refile. Okay, so this is not over by a long shot. I just think it's so gross that these BYU fans and BYU football players are tweeting out shaming this young lady, claiming that it was a cash grab or claiming we don't know any of it, and neither do you. And look, if Parker's innocent, then he should get off. And if he's guilty, he should be punished. We don't know either way. But do like 5 minutes of research before you take to your Twitter profile to victim shame this young lady. I don't know. The whole thing is gross. We don't know how it's going to end. I believe he was expelled from Brigham Young. There's no such thing as a transfer portal anymore to allow him to find a new place to play. Am I understanding that correctly, Porter? Like
at least past the date, yeah.
So maybe like can he gain re-entrance to BYU and play for them this year? I maybe I'm asking you a question that's impossible to know.
I mean, technically, at this point, yes. Again, the charges will likely be refiled. But yeah, the transfer window has closed. The only question mark I would put on that is that he is also a track athlete, so I guess there is a different window. He could technically transfer in that, I believe. That's the only real question mark I have there. But yeah, it does seem like this late in the process, it's either BYU or probably not playing this year. As you said, though, if the way that you are reacting or covering this situation, regardless of which way it goes, whether he is exonerated or found guilty or any of the above, if the way that you're following it and covering it is based on your perception as a football fan, based on your bias as a football fan, take a step back. Both sides on that one.
Yeah, it sucks. It's not surprising, especially with a guy like that. But it really is such an embarrassing look for anybody involved with BYU or BYU football to be victim shaming when we don't know the truth of the matter. And everybody deserves due process, and Parker certainly deserves that. So we'll see how it plays out. Mexico, South Korea tonight. That's your late night World Cup match, 7 o'clock on Fox. And tomorrow, 1 o'clock, during the show, the U.S. men's national team will be in action against Australia. I will promise to not be distracted. Want to let you know that coming up on Tuesday of next week, it is the NBA draft. And we are going to be live at the Engine Room, which is 1338 South, 300 West here in Salt Lake City. It's kind of by the old ballpark where the Bees used to play over there. So come hang out with us. Going to have a good time. It's going to be myself, Sean O'Connell, Gordy Chiesa, and Richard Smith. Of course, Gordy, longtime NBA and college coach. Smitty was in the rooms where it happened for 40 years with the Utah Jazz. I can promise you, by far, we'll have the best draft coverage in the market, and it won't even be close. So join us starting at 6, and if you can't be there live in person, we'd love to hang out with you, have some food and hang out with you, but make sure to keep the station here on ESPN 700. Latest on the Walker Kessler stuff, NBA offseason. Porter, what's coming up on a weekend, Friday edition of the program?
Friday edition of The Drive. Howard Beck for your NBA Daily Assist. Richard Smitty Smith stops by in studio. We'll chat with Dave McMiniman. And, of course, your USGA leaderboard update with our friend Paul Pugmire.
Thank you for that clarification. The U.S. Open continues to roll on, and we'll keep you up to date on those results. We will say goodnight. Special thank you today to Mike Yam, Tony Parks, JP Chunga, and Brian Dunseth. If you miss any of the sound from the show, you can go to the website because it's ESPN700sports.com. I don't know why I said it because it is. It just continues to be. Download the mobile app and take us on the go. And then for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, check out the podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. Join us for episode 17 of Talkin' Real tonight at 10:35 on KMYU. It's myself and Kurt Schmid, the sporting director for Real Salt Lake. For Porter, I'm Spence saying good night. Have a great Thursday evening. We'll talk to you on a Friday drive. As always, you can catch it right here on ESPN 700.